What if Harry Potter was trained by Shanks? Welcome back to Savage Harry, the channel where the boy who lived learns from the men who live louder. Today on Savage Harry, we are asking the question we could not stop thinking about. What if Harry Potter was trained by Shanks? 6 full chapters of hacky, swordsmanship, Hogwarts, and a Yonko's philosophy of freedom meeting a young wizard who has never before been asked what he wants. If you enjoy what you read, please slap that like button, leave a comment with your favorite moment, and subscribe so you never miss a Savage What If. Now settle in, grab something warm, and let's begin. Chapter 1. The Red-Haired Stranger. The first strange thing about that Tuesday in Little Whinging was the sky. It was the wrong color. Not the summer blue Petunia Dursley liked, the kind that promised barbecue weather and a properly mowed lawn. It was a sick, bruised green, the color of a bottle held up against a street lamp. People on Privet Drive kept glancing up and then away, as if pretending not to look could unsee it. The second strange thing was the wind. It came from no compass direction Harry could name. It smelled of salt, and of something that wasn't salt at all, something old and wet, and a little like burnt iron. The third strange thing, though Harry wouldn't know it for another hour, was that a man was about to fall out of the sky and change his life. "Move it, freak!" Harry stumbled against the garden wall. Dudley's fist had caught him squarely between the shoulder blades, and his glasses slid down his nose. He was 6 years old and small for his age, skinny in the way children are when meals are something they wait for rather than expect. "Dudley, leave it," said Piers Polkiss, not because he felt bad, but because his mum was watching from 2 doors down. "Come on, there's ice creams." "In a minute." Dudley licked his lips. There was a greedy light in his small eyes. "Go on, Harry, run. Make it fun." "I wasn't doing anything," Harry said quietly. "You were looking at me." "I wasn't. You were looking at me funny." Harry had learned a long time ago that the most honest answer to Dudley was no answer at all. He set his jaw. The garden wall was warm against his back. He thought very briefly that if he could make the wall taller, if he could make himself very small, if he could make Dudley simply not see him, then everything would be fine. Sometimes when he thought things like that, they happened. Not today. Dudley swung. Harry ducked a pure, thoughtless movement, the kind a rabbit makes when a shadow crosses the grass. Dudley's fist struck brick. Dudley howled. Piers laughed. Malcolm laughed. And the wind, which had been only strange before, turned hard and cold and tasted unmistakably of the sea. "You!" Dudley grabbed for him. Harry was already moving. He slid under Dudley's reaching arm and out onto the pavement, bare feet slapping against concrete. The houses of Privet Drive looked suddenly unfamiliar. The light was very green. The sky had gone low and heavy, as if a great weight had settled on it. He ran. He ran past Mrs. Figg's house with its scent of cabbage and cat, past the corner where Mr. Number 7 sometimes waved at him when Petunia wasn't looking. He ran down the alley where the Binns lived, and his shoulder struck a loose wooden board and something spilled out of his pocket, a conker, small and brown, the only nice thing he owned that day. He didn't stop to pick it up. Behind him, Dudley's footsteps were already slowing. Dudley always gave up at running, it wasn't his sport. But Harry didn't slow. There was, he realized, nowhere to go. The Dursleys' house was not a place. It was a set of rooms he slept in. So he ran toward the common instead, toward the scraggly line of trees at the edge of the estate where the grass hadn't been mown in years, and he kept running until the houses thinned, and then there was only the field, and then only the field and him and the wrong-colored sky. He bent over, hands on his knees. His lungs hurt. The wind smelled of salt. "Oi!" Harry looked up. He'd thought he was alone. He was not alone. A man was sitting on the crest of the hill, where a half-buried stone made a sort of seat. He sat like someone who had found a perfectly good chair in the middle of a field and wasn't sorry about it at all. He had red hair, not ginger red like Dudley's friend Adrian, not auburn, not strawberry, not orange. Red, the red of fire banked down for the night, the red of an apple's skin just before it shines. It hung in a mane to his shoulders. He wore a long black cloak, water-dark at the hem, and a white shirt opened 2 buttons past where Petunia would have allowed. His left sleeve hung loose. Harry realized with slow astonishment, missing an arm. He was also grinning. "You run fast for a short thing," the man said. His voice was easy, a little rough, the way sailors' voices are. It sounded like he'd been using it to laugh more than argue. "Something chasing you," Harry tried to answer. He opened his mouth and no sound came out. There was a peculiar ringing in his ears, and he realized distantly that the ringing had begun the moment he looked at the man. It was not unpleasant. It was the feeling you get standing on a cliff when the wind turns, when every bit of you knows before your mind does that you are near an edge. "Dudley," Harry managed. "My cousin." "Cousins." The man stretched his legs. He wasn't wearing shoes. There was sand between his toes, which was unusual, because Little Whinging was 60 miles from the nearest beach. "Bad business sometimes. Mine used to steal my soup." "He punches me," Harry said before he could stop himself. The red-haired man's eyebrow went up. The easy grin was still there, but something else had come up behind it, a colder thing, and for a second the strange ringing in Harry's ears got very loud. Then it quieted, and the man was only a man again, a friendly-looking stranger, a little damp, sitting on a stone. "Does he now?" said the man. "How big is he?" "Big. Bigger than you. Everyone's bigger than me." "That's a fair grief," the man said solemnly. "Come sit down." Harry hesitated. Petunia had a long list of things Harry was not to do. Talking to strangers was on the list, just below asking questions and just above being born. But the man on the stone did not feel like a stranger. He felt like a door left open on a cold day. You went toward it without deciding to. Harry sat. Up close, the stranger smelled exactly like the wind. Salt, sun, and that curious faint char, as though he had walked through a lightning storm on the way here. There were 3 pale scars across his left eye, 4 neat parallel lines that stopped just short of the lid. They were old scars. They had healed well. Harry had seen new burns on Uncle Vernon's arm once from a kettle, and he knew the difference between a scar that still hurt and a scar that was simply part of the face. "What's your name?" the man asked. "Harry. Just Harry." "Harry Potter." The red-haired man made a small, thoughtful noise, as if he'd heard the name before and was turning it over in his head to see which side was up. He did not, however, do what the few adults who had recognized the name did not lean forward, did not whisper, did not touch his forehead. He just nodded once. "I'm Shanks," he said. "Shanks," Harry repeated. "Plain Shanks if you like, or red hair if you fancy it. The lads have a longer version they use when they want me to buy the drinks." "You don't want to hear that one. Where are you from?" Shanks considered the green sky. "Far," he said. "You, number 4. Is number 4 far? It's just over there." "Ah," Shanks nodded gravely. "Well, I'm from further than number 4. Harry almost laughed. He hadn't laughed in a long time, and the sound, when it came out, was short and surprised, like a cough. He glanced at Shanks sideways, expecting to be told off for being rude. Shanks was only smiling. "What's wrong with the sky?" Harry asked. Shanks looked up. "Something fell through it," he said. "Not me, something older. When you come through from where I come from to where you are, the air gets a bit confused. Gives you a bruise on the blue, like." "It'll fade." Harry considered this. It was, by some distance, the least sensible thing any adult had ever said to him. It was also, by some distance, the first thing any adult had ever said to him without talking over his head or past him or around him. "Are you lost?" Harry asked. "Not as such." Shanks tilted his head. "You might be, though. I'm not in the field." Shanks tapped his own chest. "In here, being punched for looking funny, that's a kind of lost." Harry didn't answer that. The wind turned again. Something in the air changed, the ringing in Harry's ears rose, and this time it was not warm. It was the feeling of a hand closing somewhere behind him. He looked back down the hill. The common was empty, but at the edge of the hedge, where the gorse grew thick, he saw a shape. Not a person, not properly. A long black shape, tall as a man, thin as a coat on a peg. It had no face Harry could make out. It did not move. It was simply there, watching in a way that made the grass around it go limp and gray. "Shanks," Harry whispered. "I see it." Shanks was not smiling anymore. He stood, unhurried, and the way he stood made the hillside feel suddenly smaller. One hand, his only hand, rested on the hilt of a sword at his hip that Harry hadn't noticed before because it had not. Harry was almost certain, been there when Shanks sat down. "Go home, Harry," Shanks said quietly. "What is it?" "Something that wanted you before it wanted me. I'd rather keep it the other way." "I can't, I'm not supposed to. Harry." Shanks's voice did not rise. It got quieter and more even, and somehow, as it did, the hillside felt entirely too small for two people and a shape in the hedge. "Go," Harry went. He got 3 paces before the thing in the hedge moved. It did not walk. It slid, like a length of black cloth pulled along a wire. Cold fell on the grass. Harry's own breath turned white in July. He stumbled, caught his foot, and went down hard on the gravel path. Behind him, a sound began. It was not the sound of a sword being drawn, though a sword was being drawn. It was the sound of the air itself being told, very politely, to get out of the way. Harry looked back. He couldn't help it. Shanks had moved. Not quickly. Quickly would have been a blur, and this was not a blur. He had moved smoothly, the way water moves across a tilted plate, from the stone to the foot of the hill, and his sword was already up, already moving, before the black shape had finished its long step across the grass. There was a sound like a door being shut in a stone corridor far underground. There was a flash of light that Harry's eyes, unprepared, red as white, though later he would think it had been gold, or red, or a color he didn't have a name for. The black shape came apart. It came apart in strips like paper torn very neatly down its own seams. The strips fell to the grass, and the grass where they fell went, not dead, but briefly silver, and then the silver lifted off as mist, and the grass was grass again, and the thing was gone. Shanks sheathed his sword. He did not look winded. "Well," he said, and his voice was pleasant again, as if he had just taken out the bins. "That's one less thing." Harry sat very still on the gravel. "What was that?" he whispered. "Not from here." Shanks ran his thumb along the hilt of his sword, checking something only swordsmen check. "Not from where I'm from either. Somebody's been fishing in bad waters, up you get. You've skinned your knee." Harry looked down. He had. The cut was bright and a little proud of itself, the way a child's cut always is. Shanks offered him his one hand and pulled him up as if he were nothing, which, to be fair to Shanks, he nearly was. "You killed it," Harry said. "I cut it, there's a difference. Things like that don't die so much as leave, this one's left." "You have a sword." "I do. I thought you only had one arm." Shanks laughed. It was a real laugh, all the way up from his boots, and Harry found to his own surprise that he was laughing too. The green had gone out of the sky. The wind no longer smelled of iron. Hedge was only hedge. "Harry Potter," Shanks said, wiping his eye with his sleeve. "You have a mouth on you." "Sorry, don't apologize for it. It's one of the best things about you, and it's only going to get better. Now." Shanks crouched so that his one good eye was level with Harry's. His face was suddenly very near. The 3 scars were clean lines. His eyes were dark. "Listen, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the truth. Whoever sent that at you, does it feel like the first time?" Harry thought. He thought of the dreams, the laugh in the dreams, the green light, the scar that itched in October and in May and sometimes for no reason at all. He thought of the snake at the zoo he wasn't supposed to talk to but had. He thought of the hair that grew back overnight. He thought of the cupboard, which was not a room but a held breath. "No," he said, "it's not the first time." Shanks nodded slowly as if that had settled something. "All right then," he said and stood up. "All right, come on." "Where?" "Walk with me a bit, we'll get you cleaned up, and I'd like to have a word with your cousin." "You can't, I'm not going to hurt him," Shanks said mildly. "I'm going to shake his hand, that's all." Dudley was still on Privet Drive when they found him, because Dudley was only ever 10 yards from where you last left him. He was sitting on the low wall of number 3 with Piers on one side and Malcolm on the other, nursing his skinned knuckles. He looked up when Harry came around the corner, and then he looked up again because Harry was not alone. Dudley's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Shanks strolled up the pavement with his hands in his pockets. Harry had only just noticed, one pocket. He stopped at the wall. He smiled down at Dudley, and it was the friendliest smile Harry had ever seen on an adult's face. It was also, in a way Harry couldn't put into words, the most frightening. "You'd be Dudley," Shanks said. Dudley nodded. "I'm Shanks. I'm a friend of your cousin's. Pleased to meet you." He held out his hand. After a long moment, Dudley slowly put his own into it. Shanks shook it, gently, not hard at all. Dudley went quite white. "There we go," Shanks said, still smiling. "We're friends now, aren't we, Dudley?" "Why, yeah," Dudley whispered. "Grand, being friends means we don't hit each other, doesn't it?" "Yeah, and we don't hit our friends' cousins either." "Yeah," said Dudley. "Good lad." He let go. Dudley's hand dropped to his lap. Piers and Malcolm had not moved, not even to breathe. Shanks patted Dudley once on the shoulder, a light, friendly tap. Dudley flinched as if he had been struck. Then Shanks turned and walked back up the pavement, and Harry, with a last look at the 3 frozen faces on the wall, followed. "What did you do?" Harry hissed once they were around the corner. Shook his hand. "He's terrified." "Well," Shanks considered this as if it were a small and interesting puzzle. "Sometimes people feel things even if you're not doing them. I didn't do anything to him, Harry. I promise you that. I only let him see, for half a second, what it would feel like if I were the sort of man who would." Harry looked back. Dudley was still staring down at his own hand as if it belonged to somebody else. "How?" Harry asked. Said Shanks. "That's the interesting question." They stopped at the corner of Magnolia Road, beside a rusting lamp post that had been on Harry's walk home from school for as long as he'd been going to school. Shanks turned to face him. He looked at Harry for a long time, not the way adults looked at him, not past him, not through him, but at him the way you'd look at a map you were thinking of taking. "Harry," he said, "who looks after you?" "My aunt and uncle." "Do they love you?" "Number." Shanks did not flinch at that. He didn't make the face adults made when children said something they weren't supposed to know. He only nodded. "Do they teach you anything?" "How to stay out of the way." "That's a kind of teaching, not the best kind." Shanks rubbed the back of his neck with his one hand. The loose left sleeve swung a little. "Where's your mum and dad, Harry?" "Dead, a car crash." Shanks made a small sound, not surprise, disappointment perhaps at whoever had told Harry that. The sort of sound a man makes hearing a price he knows is wrong. "Is that what you've been told?" "That's what Aunt Petunia says." The wind moved just a little. It wasn't salty anymore. It was just a July wind, the kind Harry knew. Shanks looked up at the sky, which had gone a weary English blue, and then down at Harry. "Thing is," Shanks said, "I've got to be away tonight. There's something that needs doing, and it needs doing quick. But I'll be back, Harry, reckon in about a week, maybe 2. And when I come back, I'd like to have a proper talk with you. Is that all right?" Harry's throat was tight. Adults saying they would come back had a way of not coming back. He knew this the way he knew that clouds meant rain. "All right," he said anyway. "Good lad." Shanks put his one hand on Harry's shoulder. The hand was very warm. "And Harry, that thing in the hedge. If another one comes and I'm not here, you do one thing for me." "What?" "You don't run toward people. You run toward anywhere there aren't people. And you shout as loud as you can. Shouts carry further than you think where I come from. I'll hear you." Harry wanted to ask how. He didn't. Instead he nodded, and Shanks tousled his hair, and then Shanks was walking up Magnolia Crescent with his one hand in his one pocket, whistling something low and cheerful, and by the time Harry had blinked 3 times, he could no longer see him at all. That night, Harry lay in the cupboard and looked at the underside of the stairs. A spider moved above his head. He was not afraid of the spider. He was not, for the first time he could remember, afraid of anything. He touched his forehead where the scar was. It was warm. Somewhere far away, he thought he heard laughter. Not cruel laughter, warm laughter. The kind of laughter a man makes on a deck at night in front of a fire among people who have eaten well. He slept. 8 days later, in a pub called the Tilted Kettle in a part of the West Country no map agreed on, Shanks put his boots on a low table and listened to Ben Beckman read out a list of names. 7, we think, Ben was saying. His voice was low and precise. That's just the ones you could call men. The others, they call themselves other things. Names. A Corvus the Gale, still on the sea, far as we can tell. Rumors he's looking for something he thinks we have, which, being charitable, we don't. Yet. Ben tapped the page. A Yorkshireman calling himself moribund. Local thief. Mostly steals thoughts, poor man, only a problem if you've something he hasn't heard before. And the caped ones, said Lucky Roo, through a mouthful of something yellow. Yes. Ben folded the page. The caped ones, they've been making quiet calls on the dark side of this little island. Their master is out of the picture, but they've got, shall we say, enterprising successors. A few of them picked up a scent, the boy's scent. They don't know what he is. They just know he has weight. He does have weight, Shanks said quietly. Ben looked at him. You met him. I met him. And Shanks took his boots off the table. He set his sake cup down very carefully, as if it were something more breakable than china. He's 7, Shanks said, and something was already hunting him, something not from here. He didn't flinch when it came. He flinched when his cousin raised a fist. Tells you where the real damage is, doesn't it? Yassop, by the window, whistled low. And he laughed, Shanks said, and smiled a small, private smile. He's got a mouth on him, and he's got a spine, and he hasn't been taught to use either. That's the best kind of kid, Yassop. Blank sheet of good paper. Someone's going to write on him. Might as well be us. You're going to train him, Ben said. It wasn't a question. I'm going to ask him if he'd like to be trained, which is different. Shanks picked up the sake cup again. The firelight moved in his eyes the way firelight moves in deep water. And then when he says yes, I'm going to teach that boy 3 things: how to stand up, how to stay himself, and how to find the door out of a room he doesn't want to be in. And swordsmanship, Lucky Roo asked hopefully. That too, Shanks said. Eventually, sword's only any good if you know who you are when you draw it. Ben folded the page again and slid it into the inner pocket of his coat. The fire popped. Outside, the night over the West Country was clear and cold and smelled, faintly, of distant salt. The red-haired pirates were a long way from the Grand Line. Somewhere in a cupboard under a staircase, a child they had not yet told the world about was asleep for the first time in a long time without dreaming of green light. A week, Ben asked. A week, Shanks said. I want to see him again on my own first. And then, Ben, then we have a great deal of work to do. He raised his cup. To the kid, he said. To the kid, said Ben, and Yassop, and Lucky Roo, and the fire, in its small, enthusiastic way, said it too. 8 days is a long time when you are 7 and waiting for a grown man who promised to come back. Harry counted them. He counted them in scratches inside the cupboard, very small, on the underside of the second step, where no one would look, because Petunia, who did not love him, was still the sort of woman who checked the inside of her broom cupboard on Saturdays. He counted them in breakfasts not eaten because Dudley had eaten first, and in lunches wrapped in paper and left on the kitchen counter, and in dinners where he got the crust of the pie, and Dudley got the middle and Vernon got the rest. He counted them in the spider above his pillow that had spun a new strand each night and would not, he was sure, live much longer. On the 3rd day, Dudley refused to leave his room. He's ill, Petunia told Vernon over a chicken. Poor lamb, he's gone off his food. Off his food, Vernon said, as if Petunia had announced that Dudley had taken up Latin. A bug, the doctor said, a virus, a terrible virus. Harry, who had been scraping carrots into the bin, said nothing. He knew what Dudley had. Dudley was not ill. Dudley had been shown, for half a second, in a friendly handshake on a warm afternoon, what a certain kind of person in the world was capable of. That sort of lesson does not leave you quickly when you are 11 years old and fat and have never been in a fair fight in your life. Harry was sorry for Dudley, in a distant way. He was also, he realized with a shock, not afraid of him anymore. On the 4th day, he caught himself humming. Petunia whirled on him in the kitchen. "Stop that," she snapped. "Stop that at once. What have you got to hum about?" He couldn't have told her. He didn't hum after that, but he kept the hum inside his head where she couldn't reach it. On the 5th day, Mrs. Figg came round, which she never did, and sat in the garden and drank tea and watched Harry from behind her glasses while pretending to watch the roses. Harry caught her eye once. She looked away so fast her cat startled. It was the first time he understood that Mrs. Figg was not ordinary in the way the Dursleys thought she was ordinary, that Mrs. Figg had been placed on privet drive the way you place a chair in front of a door to hold it. On the 6th day, he dreamed about the snake at the zoo and about his mother, whom he did not remember and could not see in the dream, only hear. Her voice said his name. He woke up with his cheek wet. On the 7th day, it rained. On the 8th day, Shanks came back. He did not knock. He did not ring the bell. He came in through the kitchen because the kitchen door had been left on the latch, the way Petunia left it when she was putting out the milk, and he was already sitting at the kitchen table with his boots on a newspaper and his one hand wrapped around a mug of tea by the time anybody noticed him. Petunia noticed him first. She came in from the garden, a pair of secateurs in her hand, and stopped so hard her heels skidded on the line. "Who?" "Morning, Mrs. Dursley," Shanks said pleasantly. "Lovely day. I hope you don't mind I helped myself to the tea. You'd run out of milk, so I've gone with black. Takes me back." "Who are you? What are you doing in my kitchen? Get out of my kitchen. I'd like a word with Harry, if you wouldn't mind." "Harry?" Petunia's face had gone the color of old paper. "Harry hasn't got anything to, Vernon, Vernon. Vernon arrived in the doorway with the enthusiasm of a bullock that has just heard a gate open. He saw Shanks. He saw the tea. He saw, briefly, the sword leaning in a careful line against the kitchen chair. He did not see, because most people did not, the quieter thing in the room, the calm, heavy, invisible weight that had entered with Shanks, and that made the wallpaper, the lino, the secateurs, the very pattern of the plate rack feel less sure of themselves. "You," Vernon began. "Mr. Dursley." Shanks did not rise. He only put his tea down and inclined his head slightly, the way a man inclines his head when he's being very polite indeed. "I'm here to speak with your nephew. I'll only be a minute. I'd be grateful if you'd sit down." "I'll call the police." "You won't." "I will, Mr. Dursley." Shanks smiled. It was the same smile he had smiled at Dudley. "Sit down." Vernon sat down. Petunia sat down. Harry, who had been standing very still in the doorway to the corridor, did not sit down. Shanks looked at him over the rim of his mug and patted the chair opposite. Harry took it. The wood was warm where Shanks had been sitting. "Right then," Shanks said. "Introductions, briefly. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley, I'm Shanks. I'm a friend of Harry's. I'm going to be, as they say, around quite a bit over the next few years. I wanted to do you the courtesy of introducing myself before I started. Harry, this is your aunt and uncle, but you've met." "We are not," Vernon spluttered, having some long-haired pirate look. "Mr. Dursley." Shanks held up one finger, just one. "3 things. First, yes, I'm a pirate. You've got me there. Second, you're going to listen. Third, you're not going to do anything stupid, because you're a sensible man with a lovely house and a son upstairs, and you'd like to keep all of them." Vernon's mouth moved. Nothing came out. "Now," Shanks turned his attention to Harry. His voice went different, softer, private, the way an adult's voice goes when a child is the only person worth talking to in the room. "Harry, I said I'd come back. You came back." "I did, and I've thought about what I said and what I saw and what you told me, and I'd like to make you an offer." He set the mug down. "I'd like to teach you some things." "What things?" "How to stand up, how to stay yourself. How to find the door out of a room you don't want to be in. You said that before." "I did. I say it a lot. It's what I believe." "What else?" "Swordsmanship, if you want it, how to sail a boat, how to read a horizon, how to drink eventually without embarrassing yourself." Shanks tipped his head. "How to hear the world, Harry, really hear it. There's a thing in you that already hears it. You just don't know what you're hearing. I can show you." Harry thought about it. He thought about it for about half a second, which was roughly the honest length of the decision. The rest was politeness and wanting, for once in his life, to look like he had weighed a thing. "Yes," he said. Vernon made a strangled noise. "You are not," he began. "Mr. Dursley," said Shanks without looking at him. "Your nephew has said yes. That's all I needed. Now the details." He turned back to Vernon, and the quiet, heavy weight in the room thickened just a touch. "I'll collect Harry every summer, half the holidays to begin, perhaps some term time. I'll bring him back. I'll feed him, clothe him, and look after him as if he were my own, which, as of today, he rather is. You'll have your house to yourselves. Your son will sleep better. Your garden will thrive. And no one will ever know Harry has gone anywhere other than a summer camp for unfortunate orphans. Are we agreed?" Are we agreed, Mr. Dursley?" "Yes," Vernon whispered. "Splendid." Shanks clapped his hand gently on the table. The sound was small and final, like a ledger being closed. "One last thing, Harry, stand up." Harry stood. "Go and get your things." "I haven't got any things." Shanks paused. His one good eye flicked very briefly to Petunia, who had gone on studying a spot of nothing on the kitchen window with great determination. Then back to Harry. "Right," Shanks said quietly. "Come as you are then, we'll remedy that." Petunia drew a breath as if she were about to say something. She didn't. Shanks stood, and it was only when he stood that Harry realized how much space Shanks had been taking up while sitting still. He slid the sword back into whatever fold of cloak it lived in. He picked up his mug, drained it, and set it back down in the washing-up bowl with the gentleness of a man who respected the dishes of other people's kitchens. "Mrs. Dursley," he said with a small, courteous nod. "The tea was very good, a touch strong, but I prefer it that way." "Don't," Petunia's voice shook. She swallowed. "Don't bring him back hurt." For a long second, the kitchen was so quiet Harry could hear the clock above the fridge. Shanks looked at Petunia properly for the first time since walking in. Some of the hard, heavy thing in the room lifted. "No, ma'am," he said gently. "I won't." He did not say the rest of what he was thinking, which was that she might have thought of that herself, years ago. The garden gate swung shut behind them. Privet Drive was empty. The sky was ordinary blue. A bee did a slow lap of the hydrangeas. Harry walked on the pavement beside Shanks and did not look back at number 4 because he understood, with the small, cold clarity children sometimes have, that if he looked back he might never stop looking back. "Where are we going?" he asked after a while. "Somewhere quiet, a few hours away. Ben's got the boat in a sea inlet you lot don't have a name for. It'll take us the afternoon. I thought you might like a pie on the way. I've only had half a pie once." "Then we'll have a whole one each," Shanks said, "and a lemonade, and you can tell me the rest of the 8 days. How's that?" "All right." They walked on. At the corner of Magnolia Crescent, where the rusted lamp post still leaned, Harry stopped. He looked up at Shanks. Shanks looked down at him. "Shanks, you said that night in the hedge, you said whoever sent that thing had fished in bad waters." "I did." "Who sent it?" Shanks considered the question. He considered it for the length of 2 cars passing, and a woman with a pram on the far pavement, and a pigeon that landed and then thought better of it. "I don't know yet," he said, "but I know the shape of their water, Harry, and I know the hook they used, and I'll know their name before the summer's out. I'd rather you didn't learn it before I do. Is that all right?" "Is it scary?" "Very." "Will it come for me again?" "Not while I've got breath in me, and not while you're with me. And when you're not with me, by the time you're not with me, you'll be ready for it. That's the whole point of the next few years." Harry nodded. "All right," he said. They walked to the end of Magnolia Road and down the little hill toward the station, and at the station there was a pie, and the pie was the size of Harry's 2 hands pressed together, and Shanks ate his in 3 bites and watched Harry eat his in 14 and did not laugh, though his eye was very bright. "Not bad," Shanks said when Harry had finished. "It's the best thing I've ever eaten." Bold claim. "It is, though." "We'll test that claim often," Shanks said. "I plan to ruin you for English pies." "Ben makes a thing with crab that'll make you cry." "I don't cry." Shanks looked at him more carefully this time. "No," he said eventually. "No, you don't. We'll work on that as well." They took a train to a town Harry had never heard of, and then a bus down a road that went steeper and narrower until the hedgerows were rubbing the windows on both sides, and then a footpath, and then a cliff, a real cliff, a proper cliff, with the sea underneath it moving the way Harry had only ever seen the sea move on television. Harry had not known air could smell like this. He had not known light could be this color. He stood at the edge with Shanks's hand on his shoulder to keep him sensible, and looked down at the water, and something inside his chest, a knot that had been tied so long he had forgotten it was a knot, loosened one full turn. "There," said Shanks. Harry looked where he pointed. At first he saw nothing but the sea. Then, blinking, he saw the ship. It was not, he would think later, a very grand ship by the standards of the ships he would come to know. It had 2 masts and a sail furled like a sleeping bird and a brass rail that caught the afternoon like a held note. It rode low and clean in the cove. There were figures moving on its deck, one tall, one broad, one with a rifle over his shoulder. Even at this distance, even knowing nothing, Harry felt them, the way he had felt Shanks on the hillside. "That's the Red Force, Or one of her tenders, to be exact. We keep the real beast further out. She's too big for a sea this polite. That's Ben on the fore, Lucky at the stern, and Yassop's the one making the bird do tricks. They know you're coming. They're pretending not to wait. They're your friends. They're my family, Harry, Shanks said quietly. Same as you're about to be if you'll have us. Harry did not answer at once. The afternoon hung very still around them. A gull cried somewhere high up. The water made its small, slow sounds against the rocks. He thought for a moment of the cupboard under the stairs and of the 8 days of scratches and of the spider he would not see again. Yes, he said, I'll have you. Shanks squeezed his shoulder. Good lad, he said for the 3rd time that summer. They went down the cliff path together. Shanks insisted Harry walk ahead because, he said, you always let the important passenger go first, and Harry, after a startled moment, understood that he was the important passenger. His legs were sore by the time they reached the beach. His lungs hurt with a new, sweet ache. When his bare feet touched the wet sand for the first time in his life, he made a small, involuntary noise, half laugh and half gasp, and Shanks behind him made no comment at all, and this was a kindness Harry would remember for a long time. The tender came in through the low surf. Ben Beckman was tall and lean and quiet-eyed, with a rifle across his back and a look that took Harry in and filed him away in a single, patient glance. Yassop's smile was white and quick. Lucky Roo, behind them both, stood up in the little boat and said in a voice like a happy barrel rolling downhill, So this is him. This is him, Shanks said. You're smaller than I thought, lad. That'll change. Do you like lamb? I'd say yes. Yes. Good answer. Harry was lifted into the boat with the easy competence of men who had lifted a great many things in their lives. The tender turned. The oars bit. The beach receded, and Harry, looking back from the bow, saw the cliff that had held England up shrink to a line and then to a thought. The sea got bigger. The sky got bigger. His own small life, which had been the size of a cupboard for all of his memory, stretched out quietly inside him until it was the shape of a horizon. Ben, at the tiller, spoke to him only once on the crossing. He said, Welcome aboard, Mr. Potter. And Harry, who had never been called Mr. by anyone in his life, opened his mouth to correct him, and then understood that it was not a mistake, and shut it again and nodded. Yassop started to sing, low and tuneless and happy. Lucky produced, from nowhere that Harry could see, a second pie. Shanks sat at the bow with his one hand on the rail and his one eye half closed against the light, and watched the water the way a man watches a river he has known all his life. The wind freshened. The gulls wheeled. The ship ahead grew from a toy to a thing you could fall into. And behind them, far to the west, so far neither Harry nor any of the men around him could see it yet, a sail of an entirely different cut, black canvas stitched with gray, nosed above the horizon and turned, very slowly, toward the coast of a country it had no business being near. They did not see it. The boy watched his new world instead. Little Whinging let them go, and behind them, in a kitchen on Privet Drive, a woman who had spent her whole life pretending she was not related to magic sat at the table with her hands folded, very still, and did not cry because she had forgotten how, but came, for the first time in 10 years, very close. Chapter 1 end. Chapter 2. The weight of the sword the island had no name. That was the first thing Shanks told him, on the morning of the first day, standing with him on the Blacksand beach while the sun came up and Yassop, higher on the dunes, put out the last of a small, neat fire with the heel of his boot. It isn't on any chart that matters, Shanks said. Which means it isn't on any chart, which means as far as the world is concerned, we are currently nowhere. How does it feel? Warm, Harry said. That's a decent answer. I mean, I like it. Better answer. The beach ran in a long black crescent between 2 low cliffs. The cliffs were tumbled basalt, old and patient. The sea pulled in long, slow rolls and turned white only at the very last. Behind the beach was a bowl of green. A valley thick with palms and scrub and fruit Harry did not know the names of. And at the far end of the valley, tucked against the hill so that it looked more like a fold of the land than a thing built by men, was a house. A long, low, lazy sort of house with a wide porch and no obvious door. "How do you get in?" Harry asked. "You walk up to it," Shanks said. "It only opens for us, that's Yassop's work. He shot the key into the lintel." Harry thought about that. He filed it away under things I will believe for now and check later. He was learning already that Shanks said a great many things like this, and that most of them turned out to be not quite jokes. "Right," Shanks said. "Before breakfast, come with me." They walked to the water's edge. The surf came in and wet Harry's feet, and he didn't flinch. It was getting easier. Shanks stood beside him, his one hand resting on his sword, and looked out to sea for a long moment. The horizon was very clean. The light on the water was the color of a fresh lemon. "Harry," Shanks said, "shut your eyes." Harry shut them. "Tell me what you can hear." "The sea. What else?" "Gulls. What else?" "The wind, I think, leaves up the valley. What else?" Harry concentrated. The fire's still no that went out." "Good, that was a test. You caught it. What else?" "Yassop. Is that so?" "His boots on the sand. He's walking toward us. He stops sometimes." "He's hunting, actually. A crab. Don't tell him you heard him. He's proud. What else?" Harry opened his mouth to say nothing else, and then, because his eyes were still closed, he stopped and listened again. He listened the way he had listened on the hill when the black thing had come across the grass, not with his ears, through them to some other place underneath. "You," he said. "Go on. You, I can feel you, not your boots, just you, like a weight." Shanks was quiet for a moment. "Open your eyes, Harry," he said softly. Harry opened them. Shanks was grinning. "Right," he said. "Well, that's made the first week a lot easier. It's called hacky." Ben Beckman was eating a banana. He did this with the same grave competence he did everything. The banana had been peeled in 3 movements and was currently being eaten in short, thoughtful bites. Harry was sitting cross-legged on the porch steps. The porch had, as promised, admitted them without a door. "There are 3 flavors of it," Ben went on. "The first is what you did on the beach this morning. We call it observation. It lets you feel people and presences, and with practice, intentions. Some of us can feel storms coming, days out. Some of us can feel when a man across a room is about to lie to us. Is that everyone? Most people never wake to it. Some people do partway and don't know what they've woken to. You," Ben tilted his head. "You woke up a long time ago, Harry. Nobody seems to have noticed. We'll fix that." "What are the other 2? "Armament, that's the one you'll fall in love with. Lets you turn your skin into something a little harder than skin, a little more sure than bone. Lets you hit a ghost if it comes to it. Lets you parry a blade with your forearm. Lets you," Ben's mouth twitched, "teach manners to a bigger cousin." Harry grinned at his knees. "And the 3rd?" he asked. Ben paused. He looked at Shanks, who was up on the ridge with Yassop doing something with a bow. He looked back at Harry. "The 3rd," Ben said, "is not a training matter. The 3rd you are either born with or you are not. It's called conquerors. It's not common. Most pirates meet one person in their life who has it. Some meet none. You don't learn it. It wakes. And once it wakes, it teaches you more than you teach it." "Has Shanks got it?" "He has. Have you?" "Number O," Harry considered. "Sorry." Ben laughed. It was the first time Harry had heard him laugh. The laugh was as short and clean as everything else about him. "Don't apologize, boy. It isn't a gift, it's a weight. Shanks carries his better than most. I'd rather carry rifles." Training started that afternoon with a stick, not a sword. Shanks was very firm on the matter. "A sword is a decision you don't take back," he said. "We'll come to it, but you learn the shape of the decision first." The stick was shaved bamboo, about the length of Harry's arm. It had a small cloth wrapping where a handle would be. It was almost weightless. It felt to Harry's hand enormous. "Hold it like a pen," Shanks said, "not like a broom." "I've never held a pen properly." "Then hold it like a spoon. You know spoons." Harry held it like a spoon. "Now," Shanks said, "hit me. I'll hurt you." "You won't hit me." Harry hit him, or tried to. The stick whistled through the air where Shanks had been. Shanks was suddenly somewhere else, a little to Harry's left, his one good hand resting on his hip. He had not, as far as Harry could see, moved. The air where Shanks had been still seemed to hold the idea of him. "Again," Shanks said. Harry hit. Again the stick found nothing. Again Shanks was one polite step to the side. They did this for an hour. By the end of the hour, Harry's arm ached, his lungs ached, his pride, which he had not known until that day he possessed, ached most of all. Shanks had not once raised his own hand. He had not mocked. He had simply, over and over, been somewhere else. "Sit down," Shanks said at last. Harry sat down. He did not sit, he fell in a small, controlled collapse onto the grass. "Harry," Shanks said, crouching beside him, "what did you do differently the first time you tried to hit me versus the last?" "Nothing." "Think," Harry thought. His face was hot. The grass prickled his legs. I was trying harder at the end," he said. "How? Faster, harder, like with my arm more." "And did it work?" Number, why do you think that is?" Because you're bigger and you're older and you're..." "It's because, Harry," Shanks said, very gently, "I could feel you coming. The same way you felt me this morning on the beach. Every time you raised the stick, your intention rang across the field like a bell. I just stepped where the bell wasn't. So I can't hit you. You can't hit anyone who can hear, but here's the interesting bit." Shanks smiled. "Neither can they hit you if you can hear them first." Harry stared. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "I can dodge anything. I'm telling you can dodge anything you can feel, which once we're finished will be a great deal. Can you dodge a bullet? I've done it. Can you dodge a train? Haven't tried, I've a theory." Harry laughed. It hurt. He had used muscles he didn't know he had. "All right," Shanks said, straightening up and offering his one hand. "Up, again. This time don't hit me with the stick. Hit me with the intention. Feel me feeling you. Try to sneak around the feeling. That's the game." "That's not a game." "It's the best game," Shanks said. They trained for 2 weeks before Shanks let him lift anything heavier than the stick. Harry didn't mind. The days had a rhythm he had never known. He woke at dawn, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Because Yassop would be on the ridge with a bow and an invitation and a breakfast of pan-fried fish. He ran the beach with Lucky Roo wheezing happily behind him. "Pace me, boy, pace me. Don't let an old fat man die alone." He sat on the porch and drilled observation with Ben, who said over and over the same 3 words. "Listen, then listen, then listen." He slept on a proper cot, in a proper room, with a proper blanket. The first night he had cried. No one had said anything about it. In the morning, there had been a new shirt folded at the foot of the cot. Nobody asked how it had gotten there. Shanks had merely glanced at him over his coffee and said, "Grand morning," and Harry had said grand morning back, and a thing in his chest had shifted an inch closer to being whole. On the 15th day, Shanks took him up the ridge. "There's a village," Shanks said, "on the other side of the cove, about 6 miles. Fishing village, nice folk. Call it Virgil's Hold. Doesn't show on your Muggle charts either. It's tucked." "Tucked. Between worlds, bit of both. A few of them trade with a few of yours. Most of them keep to their own. We visit them every now and again because Lucky likes the fishmonger's daughter. Don't tell Lucky I told you, and because the mayor there owes us a very old favor." "Are we going?" "Not today. Today I want you to feel it. Shut your eyes." Harry shut them. "Now," Shanks said, "reach." Harry reached. For a long moment he felt nothing. He felt the wind, the ridge grass, the gulls, bend down on the porch, Yassop nearer, and Shanks a warm, sure weight at his shoulder. He pushed past them. It felt strange, like leaning out of a window into a dark room. There was space. There was a lot of space. And in the space, oh, Harry whispered, "There you are. It's lots of them. About 300 souls. Tell me what you feel." "Tired, they're tired. There was a feast last night. Somebody got married. Somebody's new. A baby's they're asleep and their mother is awake but not worried. Is that right?" "Open your eyes, Harry." Harry opened them. Shanks was staring at him. For once, Shanks was not smiling. "What?" Harry said, suddenly afraid. Most adults," Shanks said quietly, "cannot do what you just did, Harry. Most adults, after a year of training, get as far as felt a crowd. You just felt a baby." "Is that bad?" You look like it's bad." Shanks rubbed the back of his neck with his one hand. He glanced down at the village. He glanced up at the sky. He did not, for perhaps the first time since Harry had known him, seem to be quite sure what to say. "Harry," he said, eventually, "when I said you'd woken up a long time ago, I may have underestimated by how long." "What does that mean?" It means we need to go faster. Shanks's mouth twitched into a smile, not the easy one, the one he used when something interesting had become something important. Tomorrow, you get a weighted stick. Day after that, a wooden sword. The week after that, if you don't break anything, I'm going to teach you a word. What word? Hackey's own word. The one you say in your head when you want your skin to remember it isn't only skin. We'll start with that. And then we'll see how fast this train can really go. Harry could only nod. His heart was thudding, but not with fear. It was with the first, clean, dangerous joy of being told he was good at something. The raid came on the 21st day. It did not, of course, announce itself as a raid. Things like that never do. Harry was on the ridge with Yassop, learning not archery, not yet, but wind. The bow is the easy part, Yassop had said. The wind is the trick. Yassop had shown him how to read a leaf, a gull, a bank of smoke on the horizon. Yassop had a son somewhere, Harry had learned. Yassop didn't talk about him much. When he did, his face went a little soft, the way stone goes soft under running water, and something in Harry understood without being told that there were different kinds of fathers in the world. Yassop was the one who saw it first. He went very still. "Smoke," he said. Harry turned. Across the water, above the fold of land that hid Virgil's hold, a column was rising. Not the thin gray of a hearth. Thick, black, wrong-colored. The way the sky had been wrong-colored above Privet Drive. "Fire," Harry said. "No," Yassop said, and his voice had gone strange, "not fire." He had his rifle off his back before he finished the sentence. He dropped to one knee, scope to his eye. For a long, long moment, there was only the wind in the grass and the slow thump of Harry's own heart. 3, Yassop said. 4, black robes, masks. They're moving wrong, Harry. They're not running, they're walking. People are running from them. He lowered the rifle. He looked at Harry. His face was without color. "Get Shanks," Yassop said. "Tell him 4 cloaks, silver masks, tell him one of them has a serpent on the collar. Tell him that exactly. Go," Harry ran. He ran down the ridge. Not the path, the ridge itself. And he could not have said afterwards how his feet had not broken on the rocks, only that they hadn't, and that the wind was at his back, and that the valley opened to him as he came down with a clarity he had not known the valley had. Every tree and every bird and every footfall of every man on the estate as clear to him as if they had been drawn on a map inside his head. Shanks was already on the porch when Harry reached it. He was already buckling his sword on. Ben was beside him with his rifle. Lucky Roo had a machete and was, for reasons Harry did not have time to interrogate, eating an apple. 4 cloaks, silver masks, Harry panted. 1 serpent on the collar. I heard, Shanks said. Ben heard from the porch. We felt them come through. Harry, you stay here. No, Harry, they're hurting people. Shanks stopped. It was only a half-second, but it was the first time in 3 weeks that Shanks had stopped because Harry had said something. He looked at Harry. Harry looked back. He did not, he realized, feel small. You stay on the ridge, Shanks said finally. Not in the village, on the ridge. If anything comes up that ridge that isn't us, you shout. Loud as you can, I will hear you. Do you understand me? Yes. Yassop's there, he'll stay with you. Yes. Good lad. They went. They went at a pace that did not look fast until you tried to follow it, a pace that made the beach ripple under their boots, a pace that closed the 6 miles to Virgil's hold in a quarter of the time any ordinary man could have done it. Harry stood on the porch with his fists shut and watched them go. Oi, said Yassop behind him. You're supposed to be on the ridge. I'm supposed to be with you. Up the ridge. Move. They climbed. From the top, the fold of the land opened, and the village was a shape in smoke. Harry could not see people at this distance, only the shapes of roofs and the column of black, and here and there a flicker that was either orange flame or something else. Yassop beside him was already belly down with his rifle. Harry knelt in the grass. He closed his eyes. He reached. He did not mean to reach that far. He felt them, the villagers, huddled in a cellar he could sense as a small, warm knot in his mind. He felt the fear in them, the fear of mothers and fathers and a priest and a dog and an old man who had stopped being afraid of dying and had started, only that morning, being afraid of being the last. He felt them and it nearly broke him. Then, past them, he felt the others. 4 cold points. Not cold like winter. Cold like a room no one has lived in for 100 years. One of them was larger than the others. One of them had, yes, something on its shoulder that was neither cloth nor man, a coiled awareness, old and hungry and patient. "Who are they?" Harry whispered. "Trouble from your side of the river, lad," Yassop said, not taking his eye off the scope. "Those the ones your sort calls Death Eaters, they shouldn't be here. They shouldn't even know this water exists. Somebody's given them a door." "Will Shanks'll handle 3 of them in his sleep. The 4th, the one with the collar, the 4th may be interesting." "Can you shoot them from here?" Yassop did not answer for a moment. Then, calmly, the way Ben would have said it, he said, "I can shoot any of them I can see, Harry." "Then shoot them." "My orders are to hold the ridge." "Your orders are to hold the ridge," Harry said, and his own voice surprised him. It was not a child's voice, it was not even his own, quite, "and to keep me safe. Shooting them is keeping me safe. Shoot them." Yassop looked at him, just for a second. Then he looked back through the scope. "Aye, sir," he said, and squeezed the trigger. The sound was small at the ridge and enormous in the valley. In the village, one of the cold points in Harry's mind winked out. Just went. Where there had been a thing, there was nothing, and the nothing was clean. Yassop worked the bolt, fired again. A second point went. The third had begun to move, to run, and Harry felt very clearly the moment the third cold point realized, in its cold way, that it was being hunted from somewhere it could not see. It dropped. It hid. Yassop made a small, pleased noise. "Smart one," he said. "Give me a second." The 4th, the one with the collar, did not run. The 4th stopped. The 4th lifted its head far below, and the 4th looked directly up the ridge. At Harry. Harry felt it like a hand on his face. Cold and long and very curious. For a second it felt his mind, actually felt it, walked into it the way a man walks into an unlocked house, and then it recoiled. Not because Harry had pushed it out, because something in Harry, without Harry's permission, had become, for one instant, not mind, not thought, not a boy, just iron, just a black, closed door. His forearms had gone cold. Harry looked down. The skin of his right forearm from wrist to elbow had gone dark, not bruised, not colored. Dark the way polished iron is dark, black with a thread of silver at the edge where the light caught it. He stared. He turned his arm. The blackness held, perfect, not a layer over the skin, but the skin itself doing a thing it had never done. The hairs on his arm were not hairs anymore. They were very small, bright lines. "Oh," Harry whispered. Yassop, beside him, had gone very still. "Harry," he said without looking, "don't move, don't lose it, don't question it, hold it." "I don't know how." "Yes, you do, hold it." Harry held it. Across the valley, the 4th cloak raised a thin black stick, a wand, though Harry would not know the word for another month, and pointed it, not at the village, not at Yassop, but at the ridge where Harry was. It opened its mouth. Green light began to gather at the tip of the stick the way light gathers in a bottle. Yassop fired. The cloak jerked, not dead. The shot had caught its shoulder. The green light scattered sideways and struck the hillside and took out a hemlock with a noise like the breaking of a plate. The 4th cloak staggered, swore in a voice that carried improbably far, and then disappeared. Not ran. Disappeared. The air where it had been made a hard, unpleasant sound, and then there was only smoke and the distant crackle of a fire going out. For a long minute there was nothing. No movement. No wand light. No cold points in Harry's mind. The villagers in their cellar had stopped being a knot of fear. They had become a knot of hope, which is only a different color of the same thing. Harry looked down at his arm. The blackness was gone, ordinary skin, goose-pimpled. He stared at it as if it had bitten him. "Yassop," he said. "Harry, did I just—" "Yes. I didn't, I know. I'm 7. I know that too." Yassop sat up. He lowered the rifle. He did not, Harry noticed, smile. He looked, for the first time since Harry had met him, tired in a way that had nothing to do with the climb. "Let's get Shanks," Yassop said. Shanks listened. He listened to Yassop, and then to Harry, and then, without saying anything, he walked once very slowly around the porch. The rest of the crew were below in the valley. 2 of the masks were tied in the fisherman's storeroom. The one with the collar was gone. The villagers were busy thanking Lucky Roo by filling his pockets with fish. At last, Shanks sat down on the porch steps. He patted the step beside him. Harry sat. For a long moment, Shanks only looked out at the water. "Well," he said finally, "that's moved the schedule up." "Shanks, listen." Shanks looked at him. The one good eye was very bright. "I told you I was going to teach you how to stand up. The good news is you already can. The harder news is a great many people are going to find that out faster than I'd have liked." "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Never be sorry, Harry, for having reached a door before you were told you were allowed to. That's the whole trick of living. The door opens when you push it." He paused. "But Harry—" "Yes. Understand this. What you did today, that's the thing I am going to teach you to do on purpose. By accident. Because doing it by accident is like being a very nice man with a very loud voice and a very crowded room. Do you understand?" Harry thought about it. Then he nodded. "I'll be quieter," he said. "You'll be precise," Shanks corrected. "That's different. A man who is merely quiet can still be heard. A man who is precise is heard only by the person he means to speak to." "How long until I'm precise?" Shanks laughed, the real laugh up from his boots. "Years," he said. "Many of them." "Good thing you've got them." He reached out and ruffled Harry's hair with his one hand. They sat together a while. Down in the valley, a bell rang. It was the fishermen's bell, the all-clear bell, the bell the village rang when the fish were in and the danger was out. It rang for a long time. Long enough, Harry thought, for the people in the cellar to hear it and to come up and to look at their roofs and to start the long work of the afternoon. Ben came up the path at sunset. He stopped at the porch steps. "One of them's talking," he said. "The one we tied up, not much, but a name." "Names," Shanks said without turning. "Corvus," said Ben. They opened the door for him. He paid them, not much, a few promises. They don't even know what he's after. They just know he likes a good storm. Shanks was silent for a long time. "Well," he said at last. "Well, that's that then. He knows where we are." "He'll have known for weeks," Ben said. "The boy wasn't a secret. He was only a rumor. A rumor's enough if you're hungry." Shanks turned his head. He looked at Harry. "Harry, I told you I'd find out their name before the summer was out. It's a little earlier than I hoped. Do you want me to say it, or would you rather wait?" Harry looked at him. He thought about the cold point on the fourth cloak. He thought about the green light gathering in the stick. He thought about the black door that had closed inside his own head without his permission, and about the iron on his own arm. "Say it," he said. "Corvus the Gale," Shanks said. "A man who thinks the ocean owes him a debt, and who thinks wrongly that taking a 7-year-old boy is the way to collect it. What does he want with me? Something he thinks you have." "Do I have it?" Shanks smiled faintly. "I have a theory," he said, "but we'll keep it between ourselves for a while yet. Ben, what's for dinner?" "Crab," said Ben. "Grand," said Shanks. "Harry, up. Come and learn how to open a crab without losing a finger. It'll be the most important lesson of your day." And Harry got up, because Harry had learned, in 21 days, that Shanks's most important lesson of the day was always the one Shanks said last. They went inside. The porch behind them glowed amber in the sinking sun. A gull cried. A wave broke. And somewhere beyond the horizon, a black sail with gray stitching trimmed its course by a point northeast, and a man in a cabin on its stern put down a chart and smiled. The storeroom smelled of salt and yesterday's fish. There were 2 of them tied to the posts, masks off, hoods down. The nearer of the 2 was a man of perhaps 30, pale, soft-jawed, with the sort of thin wrist that marked a man who had never done a day's work with it. He had been crying. He had stopped, because Ben had asked him to stop once, very politely. The farther was a woman in her 40s, narrow-mouthed, hair the color of wet rope. She had not cried. She had, however, gone on talking in a low, steady torrent in the language of people who talk because silence is worse. Harry had not planned to come. He had planned to be on the porch with Shanks, learning a knife grip. But Shanks had looked at him at the bottom of the porch steps and said, "Would you rather see them or wonder about them?" And Harry had thought about it and said, "See them," and Shanks had nodded as if he had given the right answer in a test. So they stood at the storeroom door. "Now," Shanks said low, beside his ear, "we are not here to frighten them, Harry. We are here to know them. There is a difference. Frightening a man makes him louder, knowing him makes him smaller. You watch, you listen. You do not speak unless I ask you to, understood? Yes. Good lad. They went in. The soft-jawed man saw them first. His head jerked. His eyes found Harry, found the scar for the briefest of seconds, and then slid away, because the mind has a way of not quite being able to hold an unwelcome fact. He looked at Shanks instead. We didn't know he was there, he said. We didn't know a Potter was... SHH, said Shanks. He said it the way a horse trainer says it to a horse. Don't waste breath on the words I haven't asked for. Your name. Emrys Greel. Mr. Greel. Shanks sat down on an upturned crate. He looked entirely at home. Tell me who sent you. I was told. Who told you? He didn't give a name. He had a letter from one of the old guard. It said, find the boy who's been hidden, it said. Stop there, the letter, where is it? I burned it. He said I had to. Shanks sighed. It was not a cruel sigh. It was the sigh of a man who has come all this way and found a map already soaked in rain. The woman, he said, without turning. The woman had stopped her low, steady torrent the moment Shanks had sat down on the crate. She was watching him now with eyes that did not blink. You, she said, me. You're not him. Number he's a long way from here. You're the one with the hair. I am, go on. We had a door. So I heard who made the door. A man. Another man, names, please. He didn't give, he came as a favor to the masters. He gave you a door, but he didn't give you a name, Shanks said mildly. That is the kind of bargain I would not take from a cheap fishmonger, madam, and I am disappointed in you. Try again. She swallowed. He had, she said very carefully, a coat with 2 shoulders of black feathers like a bird. He wore a necklace of small white bones. He laughed in a way that made the glassware shake. He called himself, she hesitated, he called himself the Admiral of the Gale. Shanks went quiet. Harry behind him could see the back of Shanks's neck. He saw the very small change that went through it, not a tightening, a stillness. The kind of stillness that comes over a man who has just heard, across a room in a pub, the name of someone he hoped was dead. Thank you, madam, Shanks said softly. What will you do with us? That depends, Shanks said, on how many of my questions you answer well and how many you answer badly. So far you are halfway. Keep going. She kept going. She was not, Harry understood, a particularly clever woman, and not particularly a brave one. She had come because she had been told to come, and because she had been promised a name she did not have, and because the Admiral of the Gale had laughed at her in a way that had made the glassware shake and her own small, brittle soul believe, briefly, that it mattered. Shanks drew her out the way a careful man draws out a splinter. He did not once raise his voice. He did not once threaten. By the time he had finished, she had given him the name of the ship Corvus sailed, the colors of its sails, the number of men on its deck, the quarter of the sky it had come in from, and after a long pause and a small, broken breath, the name of the magical tailor in Diagon Alley who had sold the Death Eaters their first door through to this water. Pendlebury, she said. Pendlebury, Shanks repeated. He didn't know what he was selling. He thought it was a costume. I'm not in the business of hanging tailors, Shanks said mildly. You've done well, thank you. He stood. Emrys Greel Mary Grisham, is that right, ma'am? Good. You'll be put on a boat tomorrow morning. You'll be given a letter each. You'll take the letters to an address in London I will give your captain. You'll be left there. You'll not be followed. You'll not be hunted. You'll not, so far as I'm concerned, ever be spoken of by me again. I will not come looking for you. But, Shanks paused in the doorway just beside Harry, if either of you so much as whispers the word Potter to any ear that isn't your own, I will not send another man. I will come myself. I will not knock. Are we clear? Yes, whispered Emrys. Yes, whispered Mary. Shanks smiled. It was the friendly smile, the one that had put Dudley Dursley off his food for 3 days. Sleep well, he said, and closed the door behind them. Out on the path, he did not speak for a full minute. He walked with his hand in his one pocket. Harry walked beside him, half a pace behind, because something in Shanks felt too big just now to walk beside. At the first bend, Shanks stopped. He looked out at the water, which had gone gold. The Admiral of the Gale, he said, almost to himself. Was supposed to have drowned 19 years ago. He owed me a very old debt. I will admit, been enjoying the belief that he had taken it to the bottom with him. What does he want? An apology, probably. Corvus the Gale does not forgive easily. Shanks glanced down. Don't look like that, Harry. He's not going to get you. I am telling you because you asked, and because you have been brave today, and because you have the right to know the names of the men in your own story. Not so that you can carry them, so that you can know them. He's not going to stop. Number he isn't. Then we have to find him. Shanks looked at Harry for a long moment. We will, he said. In time, first we make you ready. First I make you precise. And first, his mouth lifted at the corner, we eat. Come on. Lucky has murdered a crab in your honor. The days after were different. Harry felt the difference in small ways before he understood it in large ones. The cot in his room was moved, without explanation, closer to Shanks's. Yassop walked him, and not in the careless way of before, from the house to the beach and back. Ben's lessons on the porch grew longer. There was always, now, someone within 30 feet of Harry at all times, even when he went to the latrine, and this was done with such grace that it took him 2 days to notice it at all. There were also new lessons. One morning, Ben taught him the word number, not the word itself. Harry had that one, but the use of it, the specific, firm, adult use of it. If a man tells you to come with him, you say no, Ben said. If a man tells you he knows your parents, you say number. If a man tells you Shanks has sent him, you say number. If Shanks himself tells you to come, and it isn't Shanks, and you'll know, you say number. Say it now. Number, say it louder. Number, say it like you mean it. Number, good, that's your first weapon, you'll have others. But the mouth is the cheapest sword in the rack and the one most men neglect. Don't neglect yours. Another morning, Yassop taught him how to throw a stone. Not at a target, at nothing. You don't learn to throw by hitting, Yassop said. You learn to throw by letting go. Watch. He picked up a pebble. He did not seem to pick it up so much as to be already holding it. He did not seem to throw it so much as to release it. The pebble sailed out over the water and disappeared into the horizon, and Harry blinked and could not for a moment remember if there had even been a throw at all. Now you, Yassop said. Harry threw. The pebble went 3 yards. Again, Yassop said. Harry threw 4 yards. Again, less hand, more shoulder. 5 yards. Again. By the end of the morning, he could throw a pebble to the water. By the end of the week, he could throw one to the reef. By the end of the month, he could, on a still day, throw one to a buoy beyond the reef that Yassop had planted there for no reason Harry could name, though he was beginning to suspect that everything Yassop did on this island had, at some point or another, a reason. And in the evenings, in the long blue evenings, with the porch lamps lit and the sea a small, calm breath on the beach in the evenings, Shanks taught him the word. It was a single syllable. Harry, a long time later, would not write it down for anyone, because Shanks had asked him not to, and Shanks's asks were not asks. It meant, roughly, remember. In the language Shanks had learned it in, it was said on the out-breath of a man who had just sat down after a long day. It was the word a mother said to a child who had forgotten it was already brave. It was the word you said to your own forearm when you wanted your skin to remember, briefly, that it was not merely skin. Say it, Shanks said the first night he taught it. Harry said it. Say it like you believe the skin will listen. Harry said it. Look at your arm. Harry looked. Nothing. Again, Shanks said. Harry said it. Nothing again, nothing again, nothing. All right, Shanks said at the end of an hour when Harry's throat was raw and his eyes were stinging. Enough. Tomorrow. I did it by accident. You did. Accident is a doorway. We're finding the hinges. Hinges take time. How long? As long as it takes. How long did it take you? Shanks looked at him. The corner of his mouth pulled. Longer than it's going to take you, he said, and quite a bit of it with bruises on the inside of my wrists. Off to bed. You'll dream useful things tonight. Tell me in the morning. Harry went to bed. He did not dream. The next morning he tried again, and the morning after, and the morning after that. On the 7th morning, while scratching the back of his neck, he felt, for no reason he could name, halfway through the word, a kind of listening inside his own skin. The hairs on his forearm did not go black, but they did for a moment grow very quiet. His skin seemed to pull in toward itself the way a sleeper pulls the blankets in on a cold night. And Shanks across the porch looked up from his coffee and grinned. "There it is," Shanks said. The skin heard you. Didn't listen. Heard. We'll get to listen. Eat your breakfast." The weeks became a month. The month became 2. The season turned, and turned again, and turned again. And in the turning, Harry Potter learned, by inches, by degrees, by the slow accretion of mornings, how to be a boy who owned his own skin. By the end of his first summer, he could hold a patch of iron skin on the back of his hand for the count of 3. By the spring after that, a forearm for half a minute. By the winter of his 9th year he could, on a still morning, armor his whole arm to the elbow for the length of a fisherman's song. By his 10th birthday, marked quietly, with a pie and a bow from Yassop and a knife from Ben, and a pair of boots from Lucky Roo that would be too big until spring, he could do it with both arms at once. He had grown 5 inches. He had learned to read properly from Ben, who taught the way Ben did everything, without fuss and without mercy. He had learned to steer a small boat alone, from Lucky Roo, who gave lessons by falling overboard on purpose and yelling at Harry to come about. He had learned, from Yassop, how to listen to a wind. He had learned from Shanks he had learned the thing beneath all the other things. He had learned how to be himself in a room full of people who wanted him to be other. He had also learned, in the quiet way, that he was being watched. There had been other owls. He was told about some of them. A first letter from a man named Albus Dumbledore had arrived at Privet Drive and been, by Petunia, burned. Ben had quietly verified this. A second letter had come to Mrs. Figg, who had forwarded it to an address in London, which had forwarded it to a sea inlet in Cornwall, which had, by a route Harry did not ask about, delivered it to the porch. Shanks had read it, nodded, and filed it. "Not yet," he had said. "Nearer the time." There had been others after. Harry knew, because Ben had told him, in the careful voice Ben used for important things, that a certain headmaster on the British mainland had been, for a number of years now, quietly looking for him, and had been, for a number of years now, quietly not finding him. This was, Ben said, arranged. Harry had not asked to be allowed to write back. He did not, for now, see any point. He was learning things. He would learn more. When the world wanted him, the world could knock. By the spring he turned 11, the world knocked. It came at dusk, over the Blacksand beach, with the easy assurance of a creature that had been given an address and the wings to reach it. It came at dusk, over the Blacksand beach, with the easy assurance of a creature that had been given an address and the wings to reach it. It landed on the porch rail. It held a letter in its beak. The letter was heavy paper. The letter was sealed with wax. The letter was addressed, in a green ink Harry had never seen before, to Mr. H. Potter, the porch, the island, without a name, the quiet side of the Atlantic well, Ben said from the doorway. "Well," said Yassop from the rail. "Well," said Lucky Roo, with his mouth full of something. Shanks came out onto the porch with his coffee. He looked at the owl. The owl looked at him. Neither seemed terribly surprised by the other. "I was wondering when they'd find you," Shanks said. He held out his hand. The owl dropped the letter into it. The owl departed unhurried back out over the sea as though it had a schedule and a wage and things to be getting on with. Shanks turned the letter over. He read the address. He read it again. Then he held it out to Harry. "Yours, I believe," he said. "Go on, open it." Harry took it. His hand was not quite steady. He looked at Shanks. "What is it?" he asked. "I'll wager you a pie," said Shanks, "that it's a door." Chapter 2 end. Chapter 3, Letters from Another World. Harry broke the seal. The wax was red and smelled faintly of candle smoke. Under it, 4 curling letters made a crest Harry did not recognize. A lion, an eagle, a badger, a snake, ringed by a motto in a language he did not read. The paper inside was heavy. The ink was green. The handwriting was the kind of handwriting that had been practiced, a long time ago, by someone who had never afterwards seen reason to change. "Dear Mr. Potter," Harry read aloud, and then he stopped, because the second line said his name again, and his name in that handwriting looked, for a moment, like a stranger's. "Go on," Shanks said, quietly. Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins on the 1st of September. We await your owl by no later than the 31st of July. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress. Harry looked up. There's a list of things and a ticket. Ah, said Shanks. Now we're getting somewhere. Ben, beside him, was unfolding the enclosed square of cardstock. He held it up. Platform 9 3/4, Ben read. King's Cross Station, 11 o'clock sharp. 9 3/4. No, it isn't, said Ben mildly. Which is why they've sent you a ticket. Yassop had gone to the rail to look at the sky where the owl had been. Lucky Roo was, of course, eating. Shanks had not moved. Shanks was looking at Harry. Harry, Shanks said, you have two things to decide. The first is whether you go. Harry opened his mouth. Don't answer yet, Shanks said gently. The second is how, because if you go, Harry, and I am not telling you which way to decide, but if you go, a great many people who have been looking for you for a great many years will have found you. And some of them are going to be men I respect, and some of them are not. Corvus, Harry said. Among others, yes. He's still out there. Yes. Have you seen him? A small silence. Ben looked at the floor. Yassop looked at the sky. Not yet, Shanks said. But he's been busy. Burning 4 villages across the Grand Line this year, we hear. All of them places where someone had heard a whisper about the boy on the beach. He is, shall we say, narrowing his questions. Will he come to Hogwarts? He can't, Shanks said. Hogwarts is, to him, behind a door with a lock his key doesn't fit. But the way in, platforms, alleys, trains, shops, those are ordinary streets with ordinary doors. Those he can walk. Then, Harry, Shanks held up his one hand. Before the tactics, the question, do you want to go? Harry looked out at the beach. The sea was turning to glass in the last of the light. A single long line of pelicans went by on the horizon, low and easy. The porch lamps had begun to warm, amber in the blue. He thought about it. He thought about his mother, whom he did not remember. He thought about his father, of whom he knew only that he had had very untidy hair, and that Petunia, once, had called him that drunken wastrel, and then slapped herself across the mouth as if the words had come out on their own. He thought about the cupboard under the stairs, and then he stopped thinking about it, because he had realized over the years, done with cupboards. He thought about a castle he had never seen. He thought about a train. He thought about being among other children his own age for the first time in 5 years. Yes, he said, I want to go. Shanks smiled. It was a small, careful smile. It was not the easy one. Good lad, he said. That was the answer I was hoping for, but not one I was going to give you. Now the how. The how. You are not, Harry, going to be an ordinary first year. You'd be allowed to pretend for about a day. After that, people are going to notice. They are going to notice. Because of your name. They are going to notice because of that. He gestured lightly at Harry's forehead where the scar sat quiet. And they are going to notice, most of all, because of the thing we have built into you. Adults are going to look at you and feel, without knowing why, that they have walked into a room with a man, not a boy. Other children are going to feel the same in a different way. You cannot help it. You can only decide what you do about it. What do I do about it? 2 things. Shanks ticked them off on his one hand's fingers. First, no matter what it costs you, you are kind. Be a boy to the boys. Be a girl's friend to the girls. Carry books for tired people. Don't correct teachers unless you must. Don't win a fight you can walk out of. Don't draw your sword unless you mean to use it. Understood? Yes. Second, Shanks's voice got very soft. No matter what it costs you, you are yourself. Not the boy I trained. Not the boy your mother lost. Yourself, Harry, the one behind the eyes. If they try to tell you who you are, you listen politely and you do not change. If they try to tell you who you were, you listen carefully because some of it may be true and some of it may be useful, but you do not change. You are yours, you are not theirs. Harry thought about it. He nodded slowly. Third, Shanks went on, you said 2. I lied. Third, you write to me, every week. The owls here have their ways, will be closer than you think. And if anything begins to feel wrong, you write the word crab, and I will come. Crab, Shanks's mouth quirked. Do not use it as a joke. I will come very fast, and if I arrive and a prefect has merely asked you to tuck in your shirt, I shall be embarrassed. Crab, Harry said solemnly. Only if I mean it. Good lad. They sailed for Britain in the morning. Not in the Red Force herself. The Red Force, Shanks said, was far too loud a ship to bring into an inlet on the south coast of an island that did not know she existed. They took one of her tenders, a smaller cutter with a dark hull and a sail that could be furled quickly. Ben came. Yassop came. Lucky Roo stayed with the house, which was to say with the wine cellar. Shanks took the tiller himself. The passage took 3 days. Harry slept on the deck under a blanket and woke at dawn on the first morning to see a storm front on the western horizon that Shanks was quietly, patiently steering around. He woke on the second morning to a school of dolphins and Yassop murmuring something to himself that might have been a prayer or a song. He woke on the third morning to the smell of chimney smoke on the wind and knew, without being told, that England was close. They made landfall in a tiny cove Harry could not find on any map. A cart was waiting. The cart was driven by a man with enormous eyebrows who did not speak but nodded at Shanks as if they had unfinished business. They took the cart to a town. They took a train from the town to London. The train, and Harry noted this with interest, was an ordinary train with ordinary seats and a trolley that sold ordinary tea. Shanks drank his tea. Ben read his newspaper. Yassop watched out the window with the particular attention he reserved for unfamiliar birds. Harry watched the country rolling past. England. He had lived in it for 6 years and seen, he realized now, about the size of a back garden of it. The fields opened up and opened up. The hedgerows went on. A red kite hung in the air over a plowed strip. A small church went by with its bells shut in for summer. Where will we stay? He asked. The Leaky Cauldron, Shanks said. Is what I was going to say, but we won't because the Leaky Cauldron is watched and we are not this week looking to be found. We'll stay at Ben's friend's. You'll like her. Ben's got a friend in London. Ben has, Shanks said. A friend in most places. Ben is the one of us who writes letters. Ben did not look up from his paper. The corner of his mouth, though, moved a little. Ben's friend was a woman of 60 with iron gray hair and the sort of laugh you could hear through walls. Her name was Gertie. She owned a narrow house in Bloomsbury that smelled of books and tea and a very old dog who was, Gertie explained, neither friendly nor unfriendly, merely indifferent and could be stepped over. She fed them. She did not ask questions. She gave Harry a room with a proper window and a small desk and a quilt that had been, she said, her mother's. Ben, she said over dinner, you have picked up a boy. I have, Ben said. He looks tired. 3 days at sea. Poor lamb, he'll sleep tonight. She looked at Harry. Do you read? Yes. What do you read? Anything lately, mostly what Ben gives me. Good. Gertie nodded sharply. Ben's got taste. Come here in the morning if you can't sleep. I've got to, it doesn't matter, I'll find you something. More bread. The dog stepped over Harry's foot on the way out of the room. They slept. Harry dreamed of a green corridor that went on and of a voice at the end of it saying something he couldn't catch. When he woke, he could not remember the voice, only that it had not been angry or not with him. The first thing, Shanks said at breakfast, is the bank. The bank. Wizarding bank. Goblins. Excellent accountants, very short, do not cross them. You've got a vault, Harry. Your parents left you one. I want you to see it and to take what you need for the school year and to look the staff in the eye so they know who you are. How do I know I've got a vault? Because they wouldn't have sent you a supplies list if you didn't. Shanks smiled. People don't send kit lists to penniless boys. You've got money. Your parents were not poor. Let's not make them poor by leaving it in the ground. And after the bank, books, robes, a wand. A wand. Yes. Will it change things? With the hacky? Shanks paused, fork halfway to mouth. He considered. Not for a while, he said slowly. A wand is a tool, Harry, like a sword, and a sword doesn't change the man. A man changes when he starts carrying one. The trick will be to remember that the hacky isn't in the wand and the wand isn't in the hacky. They'll want to be separate. Keep them separate for a year. Use the wand for their lessons. Use the hacky for yourself. When you're older, when you're sure of both, then you'll find where they meet. Not before, understood? Yes. Good. Shanks, what if I'm not any good at the magic? They're magic, Shanks smiled, and this time it was the easy one, the one with the laughter behind it. You will be, he said. Trust me. There is, Harry, a certain kind of boy who has held iron in his skin and felt a village breathe from 6 miles away who is going to find wand-waving about as difficult as pouring tea. You will be bored for a while. Don't show it. It is not your job to tell a teacher that you have done their first 6 lessons before breakfast. Your job is to learn and to be kind and to be yourself. Remember. Remember. Diagon Alley smelled of cauldron polish and roast chestnuts. Harry had, in his head, built a picture of it from Shanks's descriptions over the years. The real thing was larger, narrower, louder. The cobbles were uneven. The shop signs leaned out over the street the way old men lean over a banister. Witches and wizards in robes and ordinary coats went past, and nobody in the ordinary coats noticed the robes, and nobody in the robes noticed the ordinary coats, and somehow the two made up one bustling street. The 4 of them, Harry, Shanks, Ben, Yassop, made a particular kind of group. They did not look wizarding. They did not look muggle. They looked, Harry realized when he caught their reflection in a shop window, like a delegation. People looked at them twice. Most people, Harry noticed with a small internal smile, looked at Shanks and then very carefully looked elsewhere. At Gringotts, the goblin at the counter lifted an eyebrow at Harry's key, which Shanks had produced from somewhere, from someone, and then at Shanks. The eyebrow did not come down for a long moment. "Mr. Potter," the goblin said finally. "Sir," Harry said politely. A very small, very pleased sound came from the goblin. Harry realized, too late, that polite was not what first-year wizards usually said to goblins, and that Shanks had been counting on it. "Vault 687, the goblin said. "If you'd follow me." The cart ride down was, Harry thought, the best thing that had ever happened to his stomach. He laughed out loud on the 3rd turn. Yassop, behind him, laughed too. Ben, beside Yassop, did not. Ben had closed his eyes with the quiet dignity of a man who was waiting for this to be over. The vault was not full. It was not poor either. Shanks, beside him, looked at the piles of gold coins with a man's careful eye and said, "That's a respectable vault, Harry, not a kingdom, but more than you'll need. Take enough for school, leave the rest. Your father put it there, leave most of it there." Harry took what they said. He did not linger. He did not, particularly, feel the tug he half expected from the vault, the tug of belonging. These coins had sat in this hole for 10 years. They were not his parents'. He was glad of them. He did not confuse them with love. Back on the surface, the day got on. They bought robes first at Madame Malkin's, where Harry stood on a stool and another boy about his age stood on the next stool and looked down his nose at him for reasons Harry, who had been looked down on by professionals for most of his childhood, found mildly funny. "First year," the other boy drawled. "Yes." "Hogwarts?" "Yes. My father's buying my books next door. I expect I shall be in Slytherin. All my family's been." "Imagine being in Hufflepuff. I think I'd leave, wouldn't you?" Harry, who did not yet know what Hufflepuff was but who recognized, immediately, the tone of boys like this, said nothing. The boy looked at him, affronted. "I say, what's your name?" "Harry." "Harry what?" Harry smiled, politely, the smile Shanks had smiled at the goblin. "Just Harry for now, thanks." The other boy's eyes narrowed. They narrowed further when they traveled upward, found the scar because Harry had, without realizing it, pushed his fringe back, and then tried, valiantly, to pretend they hadn't seen what they had seen. He stepped down off his stool. He did not say goodbye. Madame Malkin, who had been listening, said quietly, without looking up from her pinning, "That one was a Malfoy." "Right," Harry said. "Don't let him put you off." "I wasn't planning to." "Good lad," said Madame Malkin. Ollivander's was a narrow, dusty place with boxes stacked to the ceiling and a silence that was a little too thick for the size of the room. Mr. Ollivander himself seemed to materialize out of a shelf, as if he had been there all along and had only just decided to be visible. "Mr. Potter," Ollivander said softly. "I wondered when I would see you." Harry, remembering the goblin, did not take the bait. "Sir," he said. Ollivander's pale eyes flicked just once to Shanks. "And you are, ah." "I do not know you, sir." "No," said Shanks. "You have a weight about you I have not felt in a very long time." "I imagine I do. Are you a wizard?" "Number and yet." "And yet," said Shanks pleasantly. "Please, Mr. Ollivander, the boy needs a wand, not a discussion." Ollivander's eyes lingered on Shanks for one more beat, then flicked back to Harry. He produced a silver tape measure that began, unbidden, to measure Harry's arms, his shoulders, the distance between his eyes, the span of his hand. "Your wand chooses you, Mr. Potter. The wand is the master, in some sense. One cannot expect a proper match without patience. Try this." A box. A length of pale wood. "Beechwood and dragon heartstring, 9 inches supple, wave it." Harry waved. Nothing. "No matter, try another, nothing, another, nothing." Ollivander's face lit slowly with interest. This, Harry realized, was a man who liked a puzzle. He himself did not much mind the waiting. The back of the shop had a smell, not unlike the island, old wood, and a little salt, and a trace of something that was not quite lightning. "An unusual customer," Ollivander murmured almost to himself. "Unusual." He reached finally to a shelf near the back. He paused. He withdrew a box he had plainly had in mind from the first moment. He turned to Harry with a thoughtful little frown. "I wonder," he said. "Try this. Holly and phoenix feather, 11 inches, nice and supple." Harry took it. He felt it before he even raised it. It was not the skin listening of Hacky. It was a different kind of listening, a cleaner note, like a bell struck once in a stone corridor. Warm shot up his arm. The dust on the shelves moved. Air moved in the shop that had not moved in years. A thin thread of red gold sparks ran out of the tip of the wand and floated, quite slowly, toward the ceiling. "Yes," Ollivander whispered. "Yes, yes, curious, curious." "What is curious?" Harry asked politely. "Mr. Potter," said Ollivander, "the phoenix whose feather is in that wand gave one other feather, only one. The wand that feather went into its brother, that wand did this." He touched his own forehead. "To you." Harry was silent for a moment. "Oh," he said. Ollivander wrapped the wand in brown paper. "Curious," he murmured for the 3rd time, "what great things we shall see from you, Mr. Potter." Outside the shop in the sunshine, Shanks was waiting with his one hand in his pocket. He looked at Harry's face. He did not ask. He only raised his eyebrow. Harry nodded. Shanks nodded back. "Lunch," Shanks said. They ate at a small dim place off Diagon Alley that sold meat pies and a dark beer Shanks drank half a glass of and did not touch again. Ben watched the street through the window. Yassop, at the door, whittled a small stick to no apparent purpose. "Harry," Shanks said halfway through the pie, "walk me through what you felt today, not seen, felt." Harry chewed. He considered. "At the bank," he said, "the goblin, the first one, was honest. The second one in the back was not. He was smaller inside than outside." "Go on." "At the robes, the Malfoy boy, he was afraid, under the airs, afraid of his father, I think." "Good." "At the wand shop, Mr. Ollivander is more than a shopkeeper. He remembers more than he should." "He does." And since we came onto the alley, something's watching us." Shanks's eye did not move. Ben's fingers on the window frame went very still. "Go on," Shanks said. "It's behind us. Half a street. It doesn't have a weight the way Ollivander had a weight. It has a thinness, like a person who is trying very hard to be less than a person." "How many?" "Just one." "Have they seen you clearly?" "Not my face, my shape. They saw me come out of the wand shop. They are writing it down, I think." Ben glanced at Shanks. Shanks did not glance back. "What color?" Shanks asked softly. "Color. There, feeling, not literally. When you reach, a man has a color in you." "What color is the one behind us?" Harry closed his eyes for 2 seconds. He opened them. "Gray," he said. "A thin gray, like a wet newspaper. Like someone who has stopped being a person for a long time in order to do a job." Shanks nodded slowly. "Pendlebury's friend," he said to Ben. "Or worse," Ben said. "Or worse, Yassop." "Aye, take Harry out the back of the lane, Gertie's, stay off Charing Cross. I'll manage the rest of the supplies. Ben, finish the pie and then kindly go and have a chat with the gentleman behind us about why he is behind us." "Happy to." Harry swallowed his bite. "Shanks, Harry." Shanks put his one hand over Harry's. "This is what precise looks like. You felt him. You named him. You named his color. I'm acting on it. You have done exactly your part. Your part now is to go with Yassop. Mine is to make sure that man does not follow either of us home. Yes. Yes. Go. Yassop rose, easy and unhurried. He laid a hand on Harry's shoulder. They went out the back. The alley was narrow, cobbled, smelling of beer and rain. Yassop did not hurry. Yassop only walked, relaxed, whistling very low, and Harry walked with him, and 3 streets away they took a bus. Behind them, in the pie shop, a thin gray man with a thin gray face and a pocketbook in his breast pocket had, without realizing, about 40 seconds left before Ben Beckman would sit down opposite him, order a second drink for both of them, and begin to ask, in his quiet, precise way, who had been paying for the pocketbook. Harry lay on the quilt in Gertie's upstairs room. It was late. The city was as quiet as London ever got, a distant taxi, a single drunk singing something tuneless 3 streets away, the small shift of the old dog on the mat outside his door. He was tired in a way he had not been since his first week on the island. The tiredness felt good. The tiredness felt earned. He had his wand on the nightstand. He looked at it for a long time. Holly and phoenix feather. He thought about what Ollivander had said. He thought about the thin gray man and Ben going to sit opposite him. He thought about Malfoy and Gringotts and the goblin's small, pleased sound. He thought about tomorrow, which would bring books and a cauldron and a trunk, and about next week, which would bring a train. On the edge of sleep, very quietly, he thought about the letter in green ink. It had sat, he thought, in a drawer somewhere for a year. Perhaps 2, perhaps 5. Someone somewhere, some deputy headmistress, some man with half-moon spectacles, had addressed it to him every September for 5 Septembers and had, every September, been unable to find him. And then, at last, with him 11 and ready, the letter had gone out again, and this time it had come. Somebody, he thought, had been waiting for him. He did not know yet how he felt about that. Shanks came in quietly and sat on the edge of the bed. Shanks did not sit on beds. That he did now meant something Harry could not quite name. Harry, Shanks said, the gentleman in the pie shop is with a very good friend of mine in a room below the British Museum, and he will be there until he has had a long talk about who pays his rent. Don't worry about him. Sleep. He didn't see my face. He didn't. Will there be more of them? Yes, we'll deal with each of them like that. That isn't the part I want you to think about. Harry, are you awake? Yes. I want you to remember one thing I said earlier, and I want you to remember it if you remember nothing else. When they tell you who you are, you listen politely and you do not change. I remember. Good lad. Shanks sat a moment longer. He looked at Harry in the half-dark. His one good eye was very bright. He looked for a second like a man sending a son to a boarding school, and for another second like a man sending a soldier to a very long road. Sleep, he said at last. He got up. At the door he paused. Harry, I'm proud of you. Harry did not answer at once. He could not because his throat had done an unexpected thing. When he had managed it, he said, quietly, honestly, the way Shanks had taught him, "Thank you." The door closed, and Harry Potter, aged 11, a holly wand on the nightstand beside him and a train ticket in a drawer in the next room, slept as he had not slept in a week. And down in the kitchen, by the lamp, Ben Beckman sat with a notebook and wrote down, in a very small, very neat hand, the name he had drawn out of a thin gray man in a room below the British Museum, and underlined it twice. The name was Corvus. The next morning brought rain. A clean, ordinary London rain. Not the grand line rain Harry had got used to, but a gray, steady one that had been falling, by the look of the pavements, for hours. Gertie fed him porridge with a brown sugar crust, and the old dog sighed next to his chair, and Ben arrived at the kitchen door as the clock struck 8, wet only on the shoulders. Long night? Gertie asked. Productive, Ben said. He took the tea she offered. He did not sit. Harry, Shanks says come with me, we're finishing the list. Shanks is with his own friends this morning. He'll meet us for lunch. He sends his love. Harry got his coat. Diagon Alley in the rain was different. It was quieter. The roast chestnut cart had gone indoors. The witches and wizards had fewer faces, and the faces they had were older. Ben took him to Flourish and Blots first. Books before birds, Ben said. Never the other way round, or you'll be carrying cages onto shelves. And they came out with a tottering pile wrapped in oiled paper. Cauldron, scales, files, a set of brass telescopes that Harry, who had seen real stars from the island, handled with the polite skepticism of a boy who suspected he would be learning the night sky again from first principles. Robes already. Trunk. "Owl," Ben said at last, and they turned up a narrower lane toward Aelip's Owl Emporium. It was in the Emporium that Harry, by accident, found his first Hogwarts friend, because Hogwarts friends find each other before Hogwarts, which is one of the inconvenient truths about Hogwarts. A girl of about his own age was arguing, loudly and cheerfully, with the shopkeeper. "But your notice says any owl, and that one is plainly an owl. I have checked. It has feathers, it hoots it." "That one," said the shopkeeper patiently, "is a post owl from the ministry that escaped last Thursday and is sitting here because he doesn't know where else to go. You can't have him. Miss, please." The girl's hair was brown and frizzy and 3 sizes larger than her head. Her robes were too new. Her front teeth were a little larger than the rest of her teeth. She held in one hand a book on owls. Harry could read the title, Fowls and Familiars, a practical guide, and in the other a small, very determined expression. "I'm not going to keep him," she said. "I'm going to ask him questions and return him. You can mark them off the price." "I am not marking a ministry owl off the price, miss, because the ministry owl is not for sale." Harry, standing behind her with Ben and a cage under his arm, laughed. The girl whirled. "What," she said, "is funny?" "You are," Harry said, and he said it kindly, because he had learned kindness in the last 5 years, and because he could see at a glance that this was a girl who had not yet learned to tell the difference between being laughed at and being laughed with. "Sorry. I didn't mean I meant. He won't let you have the ministry owl. But I'll bet there's another one in here that's worse trained and harder to catch and twice as useful, and you could name him anything you liked." She stared at him. Then slowly she almost smiled. "I don't know a lot about owls," she admitted in a lower voice. "Neither do I. I've read the book." "That'll do. I'm Hermione Granger." Harry. Harry hesitated for half a second and then thought of what Shanks had said about the first day. "Harry Potter," he said. Hermione went slightly still. Her eyes, he saw with interest, did not go to his forehead. They stayed carefully and politely on his eyes. "I've read about you," she said. In 3 books, actually. Rise and Fall of the Dark Arts, Modern Magical History, and Great Wizarding Events of the 20th Century. You're in all of them." "Ah, are they accurate?" Harry considered. He smiled. "I couldn't say I haven't read them." She laughed. It was, he thought, a good laugh, short, embarrassed, and honest. Sorry, I'm going to go look at the other owls. It was nice to meet you, Harry. Will you be on the train on the 1st? "I will. I'll look for you. I'd like that." She took her fowls and familiars and disappeared into the next aisle. Harry turned to Ben, who was watching with the particular quiet attention Ben gave to the first move of any game. "She's the first," Ben said. "The first? The first of them, your year. There will be more. They will not all be like her. Some will be worse. Some will be better. She is a decent one." She does not flinch at the name. Keep her. Find others like her. Shanks is going to tell you this again, but I'll tell you first, because I go before Shanks in these small things. You will need friends, Harry, not followers. Friends. Men and women who will tell you number the sort of boy you are is going to have a great many people in the next 7 years telling him yes. The ones who tell you no, those are the ones you keep. Harry, who had not expected to be given advice by Ben in an owl shop, listened very carefully and nodded. "Right," he said. They bought an owl. A snowy. She was a big, beautiful, moderately outraged creature with eyes that looked at Harry and found him, after a long, severe assessment, acceptable. "Hedwig," Harry said. Ben raised an eyebrow. "Where did you get that?" "I saw it somewhere." "All right then, Hedwig it is." Lunch came. The rain had stopped. Shanks met them at the pie shop where the day before a thin gray man had opened his pocketbook at the wrong table. The shopkeeper greeted Shanks by name, which Harry found interesting. The pies were hot. Shanks took one, set it down, and looked at Harry. "Ben, he has been acquired." The gray gentleman. "He has also been acquired." And the nature of the acquisition. Ben set down his fork. A man, he said, who has been a clerk for a wizarding stationer in Nocturne Alley for 14 years. Pendlebury's supplier, in fact. Goes by Mr. Albin Quillings. Paid not by Corvus himself, but by a middleman, a low-level fellow. Mr. Quillings was to watch for any boy around 11 in company that did not move like wizards. The description he was given, I quote, had 2 parts. The first part was a scar on the forehead. The second part was a red-haired, one-armed man. Shanks's mouth quirked, very small. That narrows it down to me, he said. Indeed, I left Mr. Quillings in the room below the museum. He is being fed. He is not being harmed. He would, I expect, like to be offered another job by a man who does not currently own him. I thought we might oblige him later in the week. Make him yours. I was going to. Harry had been listening. He picked up his pie, ate a third of it in silence, and then said, Does this mean Corvus knows I'm in London? He knows someone he wants is in London, Shanks said. He doesn't know yet it's you. He won't for a little while. Mr. Quillings was instructed to send daily by owl. His owl has been redirected. His owl is now delivering to us. This buys us perhaps a week, which is exactly the week you need. And after that, Harry, you will be on a train. A train is a moving thing. Even Corvus has trouble boarding moving trains. And after the train, you will be inside a castle that does not appear on any map he knows how to read. For 9 months of the year you will be, to him, approximately invisible. For 9 months, Harry repeated. The other 3 months, Shanks said calmly, you will be with me. Harry looked at him. Always. Always for now. Until he is off the water, Harry. Your summers are mine. Your winters are mine. I have not taught you in 5 years to build a door of a boy to hand you through someone else's wall. Hogwarts is a door you are walking through on your own feet. I am not going to pass you off to anyone. You come home to me, Harry, every holiday, every short week. That is the deal if you like it. I like it. Good, they ate. Somewhere on the wall, a clock that looked ordinary but was not struck a quarter Harry could not identify. Shanks finished his pie in 4 bites. He looked up. Harry. Yes. We haven't talked about your parents, not properly. I've dodged it every time you've asked because I wanted you to have the basics of yourself first. You have them. You are ready. Would you like to, this evening after dinner, sit up with me and have me tell you what I know? Harry's throat did that unexpected thing again. Yes, he said. All right. Shanks, do you know a lot? Enough. Did you know them? Number, then how do you? Because, Harry, Shanks said quietly, after I met you that first afternoon, I went and found out. I went where I had to go. I asked who I had to ask. And I learned who your mother was and who your father was and why a certain kind of man has been trying to find you ever since. I am not going to give you all of that at once, but I will give you your parents this evening, because they are yours, because I am tired of the shape of them being somebody else's secret. Harry did not answer for a long moment. He looked at his plate. He looked at his hands. He said, Thank you. Shanks reached out and gently, very gently, closed his one hand around the back of Harry's neck, the way a father does, the way a father is supposed to. He held it there for one breath, then let go. Finish your pie, he said. Then we're buying a trunk. That night, late, in the small, book-smelling study at the back of Gertie's house, Shanks told him about his parents. He told him about Lily Evans, who had been clever and kind and had laughed. Shanks had heard, in the exact same short, surprised way that Harry laughed. He told him about James Potter, who had been, by all accounts, an arrogant young man who had, to everyone's relief and his own, grown into a less arrogant one. He told him about their friends, a boy named Sirius, a boy named Remus, a boy named Peter. He told him about a war. He told him gently that his parents had not died in a car crash, that no one Harry had yet met in the world was as bad a liar as his aunt, that they had died in a cottage in Godric's Hollow on a night in October when Harry had been 15 months old, and that a man had killed them, and that the same man had tried to kill Harry and had failed. He told him about the scar. He's dead, Harry asked when Shanks had finished. No, Shanks said. Harry did not jump, he did not shiver, he did not cry. Something settled in him quietly, the way a heavy book settles on a shelf that was built to hold it. He's the one Corvus is working with, Harry said. Not quite. Corvus is a freelancer. He and your parents' killer have not met. If they did, I suspect they would not get on, but they are, let us say, fishing in the same water. Corvus wants what you are. Your parents' killer wants what's in you. What is in me? Shanks smiled sadly. A piece of him, Harry, a very small piece. Left over from the night he tried to murder you. I have been told this by several people who are in a position to know. I did not want to tell you tonight because I did not want to pile too much on. But you've asked straight out, so I've answered straight out. Is it dangerous? Not to you, not in itself. It is a crack in a window. It lets him on very rare occasions feel you, and it lets you on very rare occasions feel him. That is why, Harry, we have trained you in the way we have, because I would rather you have a door in your head before anyone else comes knocking. Is it why I can do hacky? No, Shanks said firmly. You can do hacky because you are Harry. The thing from him is separate. Never confuse the two. The one is who you are. The other is a piece of gum stuck to your boot. We will scrape it off when you're grown. You will be no less Harry for having carried it. Harry was quiet a long moment. His name, he said at last. What was his name? Shanks looked at him. The study's lamp made a warm circle on the desk between them. Voldemort, he said. He called himself Voldemort. It is not a real name. It is a bad word for a small man who made himself larger than he should have been. Say it if you want to, don't say it if you don't. It is, Harry, only a noise. Voldemort, Harry said carefully. The lamp did not flicker. The room did not cool. He realized with a small astonishment that he had expected both. Thank you, he said again. You keep thanking me for things, Harry. I keep telling you not to. I keep meaning it. Shanks laughed softly. He reached out across the desk and put his one hand on top of Harry's. There is, he said, exactly one thing I want you to do tomorrow. On the platform, on the train, at the feast, for the rest of the year, will you do it? Yes. Live, Harry, don't carry live. I'll try. That's the answer I hoped for. Now bed. You have a 9 3/4 to find. They went to bed. Outside, the London rain had started again, quietly drumming on the slate. Somewhere across the city, a train was being made ready, and in a room below the British Museum, a man named Albin Quillings was, to his own surprise, being offered a cup of tea with 2 sugars, and a very different kind of employment by a quiet man in a dark coat who did not, at any point in the long, patient conversation that followed, find it necessary to raise his voice above the sound of the rain outside. Chapter 3, End. Chapter 4. The train and the Storm King's Cross was, at 11 o'clock on the 1st of September, the sort of station that makes a promise without knowing it. Harry stood with his trunk on its trolley and Hedwig in her cage on top of the trunk and his new blazer pulling a little at the shoulder seam, and he watched the travelers hurry past. None of them saw him. That was, he knew now, Yassop's work, a small walking spell on a pair of shoelaces Yassop had tied for him at Gertie's breakfast table. Don't expect invisibility, Yassop had said, expect being forgettable. That's all most spells are. I tied the knot. You'll be forgettable until about a minute after you walk away from me. The clock over the concourse said 1:45. Right, Shanks said, at his elbow. Shanks had his one hand on the trolley handle. Ben was a yard away, reading a timetable he did not need. Yassop had gone ahead, a casual prowl through the crowd that was, Harry now understood, a combing of it, looking for gray men or worse. Shanks, 2 things, quickly. First, the wall between platforms 9 and 10. You walk at it, not at it, through it. Don't hesitate, don't slow, don't try to time it. You already know how to put intention into your feet. Walk the wall like it's a friend's open door. Yes. Yes. Second, you will meet a man on the platform almost certainly, big fellow, 10 feet tall, beard like a hedge got loose. Name's Hagrid. He is a friend. He has been looking for you on Dumbledore's behalf for 7 years. He is harmless. He is kind. If you ever need a safe adult at Hogwarts who is not a teacher, Hagrid is your man. Yes. Yes. Third, you said 2. Third, Harry, look at me. Shanks crouched briefly, so his one good eye was level with Harry's. I'm going to be at the house on the island by tomorrow evening. Ben is going to be in a room above a pub in Edinburgh for the year, and he is going to come to Hogsmeade the 2nd weekend of every month. And if you need him, You can send Hedwig, and he will be at the gate of the school before she has finished her drink of water. Yassop is going to be on the Red Force and in 7 different coves around the coast of your country, listening. Lucky is on the island with the wine. You are not alone, you are just going to school. Just going to school, Harry repeated. Exactly. Shanks stood. He tousled Harry's hair with his one hand. He was smiling. Harry realized with a sudden lurch that Shanks was also a little misty in the one eye that worked and that Shanks had no intention of drawing attention to this. Write to me Friday, Shanks said. Tell me your house. Which house should I be in? The one that chooses you. Don't try. Let them see you. They're a clever hat. They'll sort you. What if, go, Harry, Harry went. He pushed the trolley toward the barrier. He did not slow. He walked at it, and then because Shanks had said through it not at it, he walked through the idea of it, and the wall was suddenly not there, and he was on another platform entirely, under an iron-ribbed roof, with a scarlet engine hissing at the far end like a live animal. The Hogwarts Express. Harry had known, in theory, to expect a train. Expecting a train and seeing 1 or 2 different things. The engine was enormous. The engine was red, not the red of Shanks's hair, a different red, a state red, a ceremonial red. The steam coiled along the flanks of the platform and smelled, faintly, of hot iron and coal and something else, a sweet, distant something that might have been custard. Children were everywhere. Parents were everywhere. Cats, toads, owls, a boy shouting at a girl for eating his sandwich, a mother crying into her husband's shoulder, a father standing very still at a carriage window. Noise, smoke, joy, the first real, ordinary joy Harry had felt pressing against him in a crowd. Harry! Hermione Granger came at him out of the steam like a small, determined missile. Her trunk was on a trolley behind her, and her frizzy hair was, somehow, even larger today, and she wore her new robes in the manner of someone who had been wearing them at home in front of a mirror since the week before. You made it, she said. I was watching for you. Have you got, oh, you've got an owl, good, I've got a cat, well, it's in a carrier, it's a never mind. Come on, I've found a compartment. There's a boy in it already, but he's perfectly fine. His name's Ronald, no, Ron Weasley. His mother is over there, look, the redhead. Harry looked. A tall, warm, flustered woman in a green coat was hugging a freckled boy of about Harry's age with a smudge of something on his nose, while an identical pair of older twins practiced a manner of serious concern that neither of them could quite pull off. Mrs. Weasley's very nice. She helped me find the barrier. She says everyone's already on the train, so we should get on. All right, Harry said, and he smiled because he could not help smiling because this was, unexpectedly, the best minute he had ever spent in a railway station. They got on the train. The compartment smelled of warm leather and old biscuits. Ron Weasley was halfway through a sandwich and stopped when he saw Harry and tried to swallow the bite whole and almost choked, and recovered with the thoroughly convincing dignity of a boy who has choked many times before. Hello, Ron said when he had breath. Hello. I'm Ron. Harry. Harry almost said just Harry. He looked at Ron. He thought very quickly about what Shanks had told him and about what Ben had said in the owl's shop and about what a friend was and how to find one. Harry Potter, he said. Oh, said Ron. He sat very straight. His ears went pink. Oh, it's all right, Harry said mildly. I'm not anything. I'm 11. I'm just going to school. Yeah, said Ron. Yeah, of course. He recovered, with a visible effort, into someone who could make eye contact with an 11-year-old. You don't remember any of it, do you? The you-know-who thing. Number, oh, good. Hermione, who had already opened Fowls and Familiars and was making a faint, guilty face at it because she had been meaning to finish it before the train, said, without looking up, Ron, don't interrogate him. I wasn't interrogating him, I was. You were. It's fine. Everybody does. Harry, do you want a biscuit? I've got biscuits. Yes, please. They ate biscuits. The train began to move. The platform slid backward through the window, and Harry, pressed to the glass without meaning to be, saw Shanks one last time. Far down the platform, leaning on his one elbow against the iron barrier, a small figure in a long coat, watching the carriages go. Shanks raised his one hand. Harry raised his. Then the train curved, and the platform was gone, and London was gone, and London's chimney smoke was gone, and the country unrolled outside the glass like a long green letter. "Your dad?" Ron asked, kindly. Harry thought about it. "Yes," he said. They spent the morning talking. Harry learned from Ron that there was a sweet trolley and that the Weasley family had 5 children before Ron and 2 after, and that their house was called the Burrow, and that Ron's mother made the best treacle tart in England. He learned from Hermione the full names of all 4 Hogwarts houses in alphabetical order, and the colors of their banners, and the approximate stoneware traditions of the Great Hall. He learned from both of them what it was like to be among children. He had not been, he realized, somewhere around Berkshire, among children in 5 years. The island had had Shanks and Ben and Yassop and Lucky, and the occasional exasperated fisherman, and once a 7-year-old from Virgil's Hold who had come up the hill with a gift of dried fish and stayed, shyly, for half an afternoon. He had not had peers. He had had teachers who respected him too much. Children, he discovered, did not respect each other at all. They ribbed. They argued. They were silly. They said things they did not quite mean and watched to see if you would take it seriously. It was, he found, wonderful. Around one, the compartment door slid open. A boy stood in the doorway, a boy with sleek pale hair and a sneer that was not yet, Harry thought, quite as comfortable on his face as he wanted it to be. Behind him were 2 larger boys with the look of people hired to stand behind other people. "Is it true?" the pale boy said. "They're saying Harry Potter's on this train." "Hello, Malfoy," Harry said evenly. Malfoy's eyes went to him, narrowed further. "Oh," he said, "you from the robes shop." "Yes. I didn't realize. That's all right." Malfoy gathered himself. The sneer came back, a little brittle, but there. "Some people," he said, "you'll find aren't the right sort. I can help you there. The Weasleys, for instance." "No, thank you," Harry said politely. "You don't want to be seen with them, or you'll go wrong from the start." "No, thank you, Malfoy." It was the second no that caught him. Malfoy stopped. His 2 larger shadows looked at each other. Ron had stood up, cheeks pink, fists at his sides. Hermione had very quietly slid her book into her bag. Harry did not stand. He did not anymore need to stand for boys like this. He looked up at Malfoy with the calm of an autumn pond. "You're welcome to sit," he said, "or to go, up to you, but I'm not choosing friends today based on who someone else tells me to choose. Thanks all the same." Malfoy's mouth worked. "You'll regret that," he said at last. It sounded, Harry thought, rehearsed. "Perhaps," Harry said mildly. "Goodbye." The door slid shut. Malfoy was gone. Ron stared at Harry. "How did you do that?" Ron said. "Do what?" That thing where you didn't get bigger," back at him. "Oh," Harry thought about it. "You don't have to get bigger if you aren't small." Ron chewed this over. So did Hermione. They ate more biscuits. The train rolled on, and somewhere in Harry a small, unfamiliar thing sat up, looked around, and decided, cautiously, experimentally, that it liked being this. The lake was black in the September evening. Harry crossed it in a boat with Ron on one side and Hermione on the other and Neville Longbottom, a round-faced, worried boy they had gathered on the platform because he had lost his toad 3 times before they were out of the station, on the bench opposite. The toad had been recovered by Hedwig, who had taken a professional interest. Neville was still shaken. Hagrid steered the first boat. Hagrid had, as promised by Shanks, been on the platform and had been very nearly 10 feet tall, and had greeted Harry by bending down and saying, in a voice too soft for his face, "Yeah, look like your dad. Sorry to, yeah do though, Harry." "Hello, Hagrid." "He knows your name, blimey, he knows me name. A friend told me about you." A friend, a good friend. Hagrid had, Harry could see, about 100 questions behind his beard. Hagrid had also, Harry could see, the sense not to ask them on the platform with first years crying. Hagrid had loaded them onto boats instead and pointed up through the mist with his own thick finger and said one word as the castle appeared above the trees. "Hogwarts." Harry looked. Hogwarts. It sat above the water. Not on a hill above the water the way a lantern sits above a table. Lights in 100 windows. A tower here, a tower there, a spill of light across the lake where the front doors must be. It looked, Harry thought, almost laughing at himself, like a castle a child drew. Not a realistic one, a dreamt one. It was, all at once, exactly what he had, without quite knowing it, hoped it would be. Hermione was crying quietly into her sleeve. Ron had gone very still. Neville whispered, "Oh." The toad croaked once approvingly. Harry did not cry. Harry sat very straight and watched the castle come closer. He thought, somewhere in the back of his head, loud enough that he hoped, distantly, that it carried, "Thank you for this." He did not know who the thank you was to. He thought perhaps his mother. The Sorting Hat was older than Harry had expected and chattier. In the line behind McGonagall's spidery figure, the first years shivered and whispered, and one of them, Ron, whispered, with great dignity, that he had been told you had to fight a troll. This panic moved up the line like a wave. It reached Hermione, who said, calmly, "Ronald, that is not statistically likely," and washed back down again, reduced. The hall was not the biggest room Harry had ever been in. The hall was, however, the brightest. The ceiling did not have a ceiling, or rather it did, but the ceiling was pretending to be the sky and doing a good job of it. The stars were the real early evening stars. A cloud moved across them exactly as a cloud moves across stars. Candles, thousands and thousands, hung suspended above the 4 long tables. McGonagall read names. Children went up. The Hat spoke to each of them, a deep, companionable voice that sometimes took a second and sometimes took 30, and then shouted a house. The shout set the relevant table cheering. The table did not, Harry noticed, cheer in the same way as the other 3. Each house had its own cheer. This was not something he had been taught. This was something he noticed. "Granger, Hermione." Hermione went up. The Hat considered. The Hat was considering her quite thoroughly, Harry thought. Then, "Gryffindor." And the red and gold table cheered and stamped. "Longbottom, Neville." "Gryffindor." "Malfoy, Draco." The Hat did not even touch his head. "Slytherin." "Potter, Harry." It went very quiet. This was, Harry registered, not a quiet of respect. It was a quiet of attention. The hall had been waiting for his name. His name, for some of them, was a book they had read. For others, it was a rumor. For others still, for a dark-eyed man at the staff table in black whose gaze cut across the hall and found him, his name was a wound half-remembered. Harry walked up to the stool. He sat. The Hat came down. "Hum," said a voice in his head companionably. "Hum, well, what have we here?" What a lot of, well, this is unusual." Harry did not answer. "Not shy, are you?" "Number no, not shy. Brave enough, certainly. Gryffindor would take you gladly, oh yes. Loyal to those who have deserved loyalty. Hufflepuff would take you too. Don't underestimate Hufflepuff, you'd be loved there. A mind like yours, Ravenclaw, Ravenclaw, Ravenclaw. And yes, and cunning. Oh, considerable cunning. You could do very well in Slytherin, you know. Oh, very well." Harry patiently, carefully thought, pick what fits. What fits, is it? Well. Perhaps what fits, young man, is number no, you don't want that. You want, I think, what will make you, and what will not try to bend you, and what will give you, in a sensible corner, the friends you already like. That is not quite Ravenclaw. That is not quite Slytherin. That is— The Hat paused. Harry felt the Hat turn, in a private, small way, the way a man in a library turns a book he was not expecting to find. "You have a weight I have not felt in the hall in 70 years. The Hat said very quietly. "Interesting. And a teacher who is not among my teachers. Very interesting. Very well. I will send you, Harry Potter, to where you will be most able to live. Be warned, I am sending you where you can be seen. Don't hide." And the Hat said loudly to the hall, "Gryffindor." The red and gold table went, Harry thought, slightly mad. The twins he had met on the platform stood up and hollered. Hermione punched the air. Ron, who had not yet been sorted and was still in line, cheered. Harry took off the hat. He handed it gently back to McGonagall, who was looking at him in a way he did not yet understand. She nodded. He walked down to the table. He sat. He had been sorted. He looked up at the staff table. Dumbledore was there at the center, an old man with a long white beard and half-moon spectacles, and his eyes, Harry felt Dumbledore's eyes, not only saw them, were on him. The eyes were kind. They were also, underneath the kindness, startled. They were the eyes of a man who had been, for a long time, working to a plan and who was, at this moment, rapidly revising one. 2 seats down from Dumbledore sat the dark-eyed man in black. He was thin. He was sallow. He had hair that looked as if it had been washed last Tuesday, whether it needed to be or not. He was staring at Harry with a strange, bitter intensity, the look of a man who was looking at the face of a person he had hated and finding another person's eyes in it. Then Harry felt, very cleanly, the dark-eyed man's attention stop being a stare and become a reach. A small, surgical reach into Harry's mind. A probe. An experienced one. The door Shanks had put in Harry's head shut. The dark-eyed man jerked. The jerk was tiny. No one at the staff table saw it. Harry saw it. The dark-eyed man's eyes narrowed. He looked for a long second at Harry the way a man looks at a wall he has walked into that was supposed to be open air. Then he looked away. "Who's that?" Harry asked Percy Weasley across the table. Percy turned. "That is Professor Snape," Percy said. "Head of Slytherin, potions, formidable. You'll have him on Friday. He doesn't like anyone, but he especially doesn't like Gryffindors, so prepare." "Right," Harry said quietly. He looked back up briefly. Snape was eating bread now, tearing it with studious calm. He did not look Harry's way again for the rest of the feast, but Harry, who had sat through the meal with half his mind, engaged in small talk and half doing what Shanks had taught him, could feel Snape, even across the hall, moving the way a man moves when he has just confirmed something he was afraid of and has not yet decided what to do about it. The Gryffindor dormitory was at the top of a tower that had more staircases in it than it seemed to need. Harry lay on his 4-poster bed and looked up at the canopy. Hedwig was asleep on the window ledge. The other boys in the dorm, Ron, Neville, Dean Thomas, Seamus Finnegan, were breathing slowly. Somewhere outside, in the owlery, the owls were having an owl meeting. Hogwarts ticked and creaked around him, not the way a house ticks, but the way an old person ticks, settling into sleep. He could feel the castle. That was the strange part. Shanks had said a castle. Shanks had not said a live one. Hogwarts was, in the hacky way, warm. A great slow animal with its paws tucked under. Its rooms had moods. Its stones had, in the low-way stones have moods, opinions. Harry could feel the kitchens as a warm yellow point far below. He could feel the astronomy tower as a cold, polite one. He could feel the forbidden forest as a great green tooth set into the flank of the grounds. He could feel, with a small surprised lift, the owlery as a whispering little family of points, all at rest, except Hedwig, who was, he checked, here. He could also feel something else. Deep in the castle. Deeper than the kitchens. Down in a place no boy was supposed to be able to feel because no boy was supposed to know it was there. A small wrong point. A small crooked point. A thing that felt like a splinter under the thumbnail of the castle, something that had been pushed in without the castle's permission. The castle did not like it. The castle was waiting. Harry lay in the dark and thought about Shanks's word precise. He decided very quietly not to reach any further. Not tonight. Tonight he would be a first year in a 4-poster bed. He would write a letter to Shanks tomorrow morning with his new quill. He would go to lessons. He would be kind. He would be himself. He would listen. He listened. He heard far off another listener. It was not Snape. Snape was behind a door he had closed himself, efficient and tidy. Snape was not listening. Snape was, by the feel of him, pacing in a room without a window. This other listener was stranger. A single point somewhere above the castle, high. A man, perhaps, in a very tall tower. He was not listening to Harry. He was listening to the castle. And Harry realized, with a small internal sit-up, he was listening with something that wasn't his own. It was as if 2 men were in the same body, and one of them was very quietly using the other's ears. Harry filed this away. He did not reach. He rolled over. He slept. Snape's classroom was in the dungeons, and the dungeons were cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. They filed in. Gryffindors and Slytherins, because somebody, a long time ago, had decided that these particular 2 groups of children should be made to share benches and cauldrons for the part of the day that involved small, dangerous ingredients. Harry sat between Ron and Hermione. Across the aisle, Malfoy sat with a pair of heavy-shouldered Slytherins whose names Harry had already committed to memory because Ben had taught him to commit names to memory on sight. Snape came in the way a wind comes in. He did not speak for 30 seconds. The class went dead quiet. He stood at the front with his hands folded behind his black robes and looked at them all, one by one, down his long nose. When he reached Harry, his eyes held. "Mr. Potter," he said softly. "Our new celebrity." Harry said nothing. "Tell me, Potter, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormhood?" Harry considered. He had read the textbook. He had honestly read it twice. He knew the answer. He also knew with a small internal smile that Snape expected him not to know it and that every second he paused was, for Snape, a small victory he did not want to give him. "The draft of living death, sir," Harry said clearly. Malfoy's head turned slightly. Hermione's mouth dropped open because her hand had already been up. Snape's eyes did not change. "Where," he said, "would you look if I asked you to find me a bezoar?" "The stomach of a goat, sir." "What," Snape said, his voice going even softer, "is the difference between monkshood and wolfsbane?" "They are the same plant, sir, also known as aconite." Snape was silent for a long moment. Ron, beside Harry, was making a small whistling noise under his breath that suggested he had not thought this afternoon would contain so much excitement. "A pretty performance," Snape said finally. "One would almost think you had been prepared, Mr. Potter. 5 points to Gryffindor for not being, as I had feared, entirely useless. 5 points from Gryffindor for smugness. Open your books. Page 7. "I wasn't. Page 7. Harry opened his book. He did not argue. He had, in the 5-second exchange, gathered several things. Snape was testing him. Snape was angry about being beaten. Snape respected, just a little, being beaten well. Snape also hated him for something that was not. Harry was suddenly sure about Harry at all. It was about someone who had had Harry's face. It was old. It had been sitting in Snape for longer than Harry had been alive. He filed it. He did not push. He brewed his potion carefully. Hermione's was better. Malfoy's was better than Hermione's because Snape stood at his elbow and corrected him quietly and gave him hints he gave nobody else. Ron's exploded, in a small, dignified way, and filled the dungeon with a smell like boiled cabbage. Snape took 3 points from Gryffindor. Harry, at the end of the hour, left the dungeon with his ears ringing and a peculiar warm smile inside his chest. He had not lost his temper. He had not lied. He had not shown off. He had answered questions that were asked and been still for questions that were not. Shanks, he thought, would have approved. Flying lessons were on the Thursday. Madame Hooch was a short, stern woman with yellow eyes who lined them up on the lawn with a broom beside each of them. Harry had not, until he bent and put his hand over the broom, quite believed in brooms. Shanks had said, "Fly the broom." Ron had said, "Of course you'll fly. Everyone flies." Hermione had looked up Quidditch through the ages and discovered, to her concern, that she had never been on a bicycle either. "Up!" Madame Hooch barked. Harry sat up. The broom came up like a cheerful dog and slapped into his hand. Hermione, next to him, sat up twice, then 3 times. Her broom rolled on the grass. Malfoy's broom flew up at once. Neville's broom lay still because Neville's broom, like Neville, was already too anxious to do its job. "Kick off from the ground," Madame Hooch said. "Hover, then lean forward and come straight back down. My whistle. On my whistle." Neville, who had, Harry noticed too late, stopped breathing, kicked off before the whistle. His broom shot up 6 feet, then 12, then 20. Neville made a noise like a dog seeing a large van. He slipped. He fell. He hit the lawn in the undignified but survivable way that first-year boys fall on first flying day. And Madame Hooch ran to him and scooped him up. A broken wrist. She said, "Up, up, to the hospital wing," and told the rest of them, in a thin, hard voice, that if a single broom stirred before she returned, she would ensure none of them played Quidditch in this school if she had anything to do with it. She marched off with Neville. Malfoy bent down and picked up something from the grass. "Look at this," Malfoy called, holding it up. "The idiot left his remembrall. I suppose I'd better hang on to it for him." "Give it here, Malfoy." That was Ron, stepping forward. I think I'll leave it somewhere for Longbottom to find, Malfoy said lightly. How about up a tree? He mounted his broom. Harry moved. He moved without thinking about it, the way he had once moved to dodge Dudley's fist behind a garden wall. He mounted his broom. The broom, sensing, as Hooch's hadn't, something in the boy it was suddenly carrying, flicked upward with a small, happy lurch. Harry, no, Hermione said. You mustn't, we'll be expelled. Harry did not hear her. 10 yards up, the wind was different. Harry noted it, with half of his mind, the way Yassop had taught him to note a wind. He noted, with the other half, Malfoy's face. Malfoy was 15 yards ahead of him and 20 yards up, the remembrall in his fist, his mouth half open in the first, quick startlement of a boy who had taken his sport for granted and now realized the sport had come back. Give it back, Malfoy, or I'll knock you off that broom, Harry called pleasantly. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Malfoy threw it. He threw it, Harry saw at once, with the clean calm of reading a wind with the intention of making it unreachable. He threw it low and wide and hard, aiming for the long grass near the greenhouses, where a glass remembrall would shatter on impact. Harry leaned. He did not, later, remember leaning. He remembered the feeling of the broom understanding before he did. He remembered the lawn tilting. He remembered the air going cold for 2 seconds and the small weight of the glass ball appearing in his hand, as if he had merely put his hand in a pocket and found what he had left there. He remembered Hermione's shout, far below, as he pulled up 2 feet above the ground. The grass was warm against his boots. He looked up. Professor McGonagall was standing on the lawn, her hands clasped, her face in a state of stone that was also, under the stone, something else. Potter, she said. Yes, Professor. Follow me. He followed her. He did not, he knew, look ashamed. He felt, small and polite and ready for whatever came. What came was a walk to a door. The door opened. McGonagall stuck her head into a classroom. Professor Flitwick, may I borrow Wood? Wood turned out to be a burly boy of about 15, a 5th year, who emerged looking puzzled. McGonagall turned on Harry and on Wood and with the smallest of triumphant gleams said, Wood, I have found you a seeker. Wood stared. A 1st year, yes, I am aware, and yes, I know the rules, and yes, I will speak to the headmaster. Potter's reflexes are, Wood, trust me. He caught a 15-yard throw with no warning and no break at 20 feet up on his first broom ride. I have not seen the like since his father. My father, Harry said. Your father played seeker, Mr. Potter, McGonagall said briskly. For my house. He was, though it pains me to say it to a boy who has not yet earned it, very good. I see no reason not to ask the headmaster to allow you to follow him. Wood will train you in secret until I can arrange it. Potter, do you know how to be quiet about things? Yes, Professor. Good, Wood, he's yours. I expect a cup. Now both of you get out of my corridor and do not make me regret this. They got out of her corridor. Wood, 10 feet down the hallway, turned on Harry and gripped his shoulder. A seeker, he said reverently. A 1st-year seeker. Potter, you are going to tell me the truth. Have you flown before? Number, oh, God help us all, Wood whispered, and he said it the way a man says it in a pub when his team scores. Oh, God help us all, first practice Saturday. Dawn, pitch, bring gloves. That night, back in the dorm, after Hermione had finished telling Harry that he was an idiot, a lucky idiot, a terribly lucky idiot, and probably the luckiest idiot she had ever met, Harry pulled his quill and paper and wrote a letter. Dear Shanks, I got in trouble for breaking a rule I did not know about and got rewarded for it. I am a seeker now. A seeker is the smallest player on a Quidditch team. He flies a broom. He catches a ball the size of a walnut. The ball has wings. Nobody thinks this is strange. Snape hates me. He is also the best teacher I have met today. I think we will get on better later than now. The second listener in the high tower did not reach for me this week. I did not reach for him. I think we are taking each other seriously. There is something hidden in the castle on the 3rd floor. Behind a door they have told the 1st years very theatrically not to go through. I will not go through it until I have a reason. I only wanted you to know. Please do not send the Red Force. I am having the best week of my life. He folded the letter. He tied it to Hedwig. He opened the window. Go fast, he said. Go warm, come back with his answer. She flew. He watched her for a long moment from the window. She climbed on a slow spiral, the way Hedwig climbed when she had the weight to carry but the weather to play with. The 3/4 moon behind her was already a stamped coin in a dark blue cloth, and for a second, framed against it, she looked to Harry like the seal on a letter not yet sent, a promise in the shape of a bird. He watched her get small over the forbidden forest, and turn and set a westward line he did not have to teach her, because she had done this walk before, and he closed the window and went to bed and slept. In the high tower, a man with a purple turban sat at the window and looked at nothing. "I felt him," he whispered. "I felt him too," a second voice replied from somewhere that was not the room. "He is different. He is not what you said. He is exactly what I said. And something else besides. That is convenient. Master," he reached. He reached and he closed, and he did not know I was there, and then he knew I was there, and he walked away. He walked away, master. He did not fight, he did not flee, he chose. A long silence. "Did he now?" said the second voice softly. "Did he now? What do? We wait, we learn, we pay attention to the boy. He has had a teacher, Quirinus, a good one. Find out who, find out where, find out how. And for the love of the dark man, do not, under any circumstances, reach for him again until I tell you to." "Yes, master." "There is also," said the voice after a moment, "the matter of the stone." "The stone is safe, master. The stone is. The stone will not be safe forever. Work on it quickly. We have suddenly, Quirinus, a great deal less time than I thought." "Yes, master." The lamp in the high tower went out. Far below, in a 4-poster bed, a boy dreamed of a black beach and a red sail and was not afraid. The letter arrived at Shanks's breakfast on the island 6 days later, brought by a very tired snowy owl who was rewarded with a large piece of bacon and the porch bench by the sun. Shanks unfolded the letter. He read it twice. He set down his coffee. He looked up at the sky over the Blacksand beach, which was today a very clean and uncomplicated blue. "Ben," he said, though Ben was not there. He wrote it down later, Harry's in Gryffindor. Snape tried to read him the first night. The door held. Harry did not fight him. He closed. He went about his evening. There is something hidden in the school that Harry has already noticed but is not asking about. There is also a second listener, high in the castle, which Harry has also noticed. He says he has not reached back, as I asked. He sends his love. He asks, P.S., whether it is all right if he learns to fly a broom. He says a broom is nothing like a boat, and that it seems like the sort of thing he ought to be good at. Shanks laughed then at the porch for a long time. He wrote back, "Yes, Harry, fly the broom, fly it well, crab if you need me. I am proud of you, S." He added at the very bottom of the page, after a long thinking pause, "P.S. Be careful of the teacher with the turban." The snowy owl took the letter. The snowy owl returned. The first week of Hogwarts passed. And a storm, far out on the Atlantic, began very quietly. A small rotation of low pressure that no Muggle weather satellite registered, because no Muggle weather satellite was looking at the particular stretch of water where the storm lived, and because the storm had, stitched into its leading edge, a sail of black canvas with gray stitching. Far out on the Atlantic, in a cabin that smelled of candle smoke and leather and old coins, the admiral of the gale laid out a chart. The chart was not a chart a wizard would have recognized, and not a chart a Muggle would have recognized either. It was a hybrid, overlaid in 2 different inks, one black and fine, the other green and sprawling, showing 2 different patterns of the same ocean, the ocean as the Grand Line knew it and the ocean as Britain drew it. Along its edges, small notes in 4 languages made over 20 years. Corvus the Gale was a thin man with a great many teeth. He had a long jaw and narrow eyes, and shoulders padded out with 2 thick epaulets of crow feathers that had, in a certain light, a blue-black shine to them. He wore a necklace of small polished bones. He had been told many years ago by a woman with very good information that he had the devil's own luck. He had believed her. He had been right to. "Well," he said to the chart. "Captain," said the man at his elbow. The man at his elbow was a thin gray man, and his coat did not fit him, and his eyes were not quite the eyes he had had a month before. His name had been Alban Quillings once, in a room below the British Museum, where a quiet man had fed him tea, and then it had been Alban Quillings still, returned by that same quiet man to a pub in Nocturne Alley with a new master, an apparent new master, whose letters he now answered. The name on the new master's letters was Corvus. The man Alban Quillings answered for was, in fact, Ben Beckman. Quillings did not know that Ben knew he was a double. Ben did know. Ben had arranged it. This did not make Quillings less afraid. "Captain," Quillings said, "the boy is in the castle." He is. He cannot be reached in the castle." "So they keep saying. I am tired, Quillings, of men who tell me where my prey cannot be reached. There is not a castle in the world that does not have a kitchen. There is not a kitchen without a door. There is not a door without a man willing, for the right price, to leave it unlocked at the right hour. Find me such a man. Do it gently. Do it slowly. We have, by my reckoning, until the summer." "Yes, Captain." And Quillings, "Yes, Captain. If the one-armed man should be in London again, I want to know the hour. Is that clear?" "Yes, Captain." "Go," Quillings went. The cabin door clicked shut. Corvus listened to his footsteps recede. He listened to the gulls above the deck, and to the low mutter of his second mate giving an order, and to the particular small creak of his own ship under him, which was the only sound in the world Corvus truly trusted. He trusted his ship because he had bought her twice, once in coin and once in something more expensive, and he had, both times, got his money's worth. Corvus put his long finger on the chart, at a tiny island with no name on the Muggle half and 3 small runes on the other half, and drew a slow, pleased line across the sea toward the coast of Scotland. Above, in the rigging, the sail of black canvas with grey stitching caught a wind that did not, strictly speaking, belong to it, a wind Corvus himself had bartered for, on a night a long time ago, with a creature that had not even then been entirely alive. Chapter 4 End. Chapter 5 Conqueror's Shadow on Halloween. The castle smelled of pumpkin, candle wax, and the first honest cold of autumn. The great hall had been dressed by Hagrid and the house elves with 100 floating jack-o'-lanterns and 1,000 live bats, the bats hanging politely in the rafters as if in attendance of a very important funeral. The long tables sagged under food. A whole roast boar sat at Ravenclaw's place of honor. Gryffindor had received, for reasons nobody had bothered to explain, a cauldron full of toffee apples that was big enough for a child to bathe in. Harry sat between Ron and Hermione. Ron was eating. Hermione was pretending not to, because she was in a quiet, small mood. She had spent the afternoon, after charms, crying in a toilet because Ron had said, carelessly and loudly, that nobody could stand her, and Ron was now, with great delicacy, trying to make it right without quite apologizing. Hermione was letting him. She was not quite ready to let him off. Harry, between them, was eating and watching and listening. He was listening in the ordinary way to the chatter of the hall, to Percy explaining prefect duties to a polite Neville, and also in the other way to the castle. The castle had been, since he had arrived, a warm, slow animal. Tonight, the animal was uneasy. The kitchens were a too-hot point. The astronomy tower had gone cold. The splinter on the 3rd floor, the crooked wrong point, had grown a little heavier, a little more awake. Something was being paid attention to. The castle was. He did not reach further. He had promised himself he would not reach without cause. Then Professor Quirrell burst through the double doors. Quirrell was the man in the purple turban, the second listener, the thin, stuttering point high in the tower. He was running. His turban was askew. His face was the color of boiled rice. He reached the staff table before he ran out of air and fell, gasping, against the end of it. "TT troll," he said. "Troll in the dungeons. Thought you ought to know." Then he fainted. The fainting was, Harry thought with a small clarity, very well done. It was too neat. Professor Quirrell had fainted in the way a clever man pretends to faint when he wants a room to clear. The hall reacted, as halls full of children react. Scream, stand, shove, and then, when Dumbledore rose and said, clearly and calmly, "Prefects, lead your houses back to the dormitories." "Teachers, follow me to the dungeons," the room obeyed. In the surprised, slow way rooms obey a man who is used to being obeyed. "Hermione!" Harry said quietly as Ron tugged at her elbow. Hermione. She isn't with us, Harry said. What? Who? Ron began and then realized. Oh, no, she's still in the second floor toilets, Harry said. She's been up there since lunch, she doesn't know, come on. They peeled off from the Gryffindor line. No teacher saw them. Percy was busy herding first years. They moved down a side corridor against the flow, and by the time they reached the main stair, the hall behind them had emptied like a poured bowl. We're going to be in so much trouble, Ron whispered. Probably, said Harry. Why are you calm? I don't know, Harry lied. The truth was that Harry was calm because Harry could feel the troll. The troll was a single low, thundering point several floors below them, and it was a confused, slow, unhappy point, and Harry could also feel, far closer, Hermione. A small, bright knot of anger and hurt feelings in a cubicle of the second-floor girls' toilets, a point that had not yet noticed that her world had changed. And he could feel, between the two, something he had not expected. The troll was moving. Up. They reached the second floor to find the corridor already full of a smell. Trolls have a smell. Ron, in a hoarse whisper, said they had a smell, and he said it the way a person says something he has just learned in a way he intends never to unknow. The smell was a pressing wet thing, like old socks and a barn and a sewer pooled together. Harry's nose watered. Ahead, the door to the girls' toilets was ajar. Ahead of that, in the doorway, a troll. It was 12 feet tall. Its head was very small for its body, the way a child's thumbnail drawing of a giant has a small head. It carried a club the size of Harry's whole self. It was stepping very slowly into the girls' toilets because the smell of something it did not recognize had caught its ear. Inside, Hermione's voice. Small. Oh, please, Harry moved. He did not, he realized later, choose to move. He was across the corridor before Ron had finished his intake of breath. He saw, half a step in, a broken bit of porcelain on the floor, and because of the time Yassop had spent with him in the long summer of throwing, he stooped and picked it up without slowing. Hermione, he said calmly from the door. Against the wall, not the cubicles, the outside wall, now. Hermione, to her credit, did not argue. She scuttled, she made it. The troll turned. Its head moved like a weight. Its eyes were small and wet and very, very stupid. It lifted the club. It swung. Harry ducked. The club hit the porcelain sink behind him. The sink came apart. Water exploded. The floor went slick. Harry, already moving, slid under the club's backswing on his knees. He did not know he could slide on his knees. He discovered he could. He filed the fact and came up beside the troll's thigh and threw the bit of porcelain hard underhand the way Yassop threw stones at the very small eye. He hit. The troll shrieked. Trolls' shrieks, Harry learned in that moment, were not a wizarding sound. They were a sound from an earlier, less polite world. His teeth rang. Harry, Ron gasped from the door. Ron the club, Confundus now. Ron, who could not yet cast Confundus, who had not yet learned Confundus, who had not, in fact, successfully levitated a feather in charms, said uncertainly, I don't. Wingardium, Hermione called from the wall. Wingardium Leviosa, Ron the club. Ron drew his wand. His hand was shaking. He leveled it at the club. He said clearly, loudly, the way Hermione had in class taught him to say it, Wingardium Leviosa. The club lifted out of the troll's hand. The troll looked up, astonished. Harry was already moving. He ducked back, rolled, came up behind the troll at its heel, and for the first time since a stone had fallen out of his pocket in a privet drive alley 5 years ago, he said softly, in the word Shanks had given him, the word he was not allowed to write down. His forearm went iron. He struck. Not at the knee. At the nerve just above the knee, where Ben had, 2 summers ago, drawn a small diagram in the sand. The iron skin made a fist of his small hand into the equivalent of a sledgehammer. The troll made a sound it had not made before. Its leg buckled. It went down. Ron dropped the club. The club, accelerated by its own weight, fell exactly onto the troll's very small head with a sound like the world's largest gavel being brought down on the world's last courtroom. The troll, already falling, hit the floor and did not get up. Silence. Water poured from the broken sink. It ran across the flooded tile toward the drain and did not reach it. Hermione, against the wall, had stopped crying. Ron, in the doorway, had stopped breathing. Harry, crouched beside the troll's vast outstretched arm, unclenched his fist. The iron skin flickered out. His ordinary hand was, he observed, fine, not a bruise, not a scratch, because that was the whole point of iron skin. "Harry," Hermione whispered. What was?" "Later," Harry said. Ron, in the doorway, was looking at the troll and at Harry and back at the troll and at Harry, and he was making, quietly and to himself, the small, overwhelmed noise of a boy who had just discovered that his new friend was not, perhaps, quite what he had been presenting. Footsteps. Adults. Fast. McGonagall arrived first. Snape second. Quirrell third, panting, not quite so faint as he had been at the staff table. McGonagall took in the room at one glance. The flooded floor, the unconscious troll, the 3 first-years. Her face always, Harry thought, a weather gauge of a face, went through 5 kinds of weather in 2 seconds and landed at last on a cold, dry wind. "Miss Granger," McGonagall said. "What on earth?" Hermione opened her mouth. Harry felt at the edge of his senses what she was about to say. The truth. She was going to say the truth because Hermione did, when cornered, say the truth. The truth was that Hermione had been crying in a toilet and the boys had come to warn her. "It was my fault, Professor," Hermione said. Harry nearly laughed. He managed not to. Hermione, who had never told a lie in her small, orderly 11 years, lied cleanly and without a tremor. "I had read about trolls," Hermione went on, "and I thought I could handle one. I was very foolish. I went looking. Ron and Harry saw me leave the feast. They came to stop me. If they hadn't, she did not finish. She did not need to." McGonagall looked at her for a long moment. Then at Ron. Then longest at Harry. Harry looked back at her steadily. He did not nod. He did not wink. He simply looked. "Miss Granger," McGonagall said slowly. 5 points from Gryffindor for astonishing arrogance. Mr. Potter, Mr. Weasley, 5 points each to Gryffindor. For sheer dumb luck. And for, her eyes lingered on Harry, he was not sure what she saw, for standing up. Snape, behind her, said nothing. He was looking at Harry's hand, the one that had not yet quite unclenched. He was, Harry realized with a small lurch, the only adult in the room who had seen the thing that had happened. His eyes were utterly still. They said Harry could read it. "We will talk." Quirrell at the back of the group was staring not at Harry but at the troll's knee, at the joint, at the place where the iron skin had struck. Quirrell's mouth was slightly open. Quirrell was not listening. Quirrell was reporting to someone who was not in the room. In the common room, that night, after Hermione had gone up to bed, Harry and Ron sat by the dying fire. "Harry," Ron said, quietly. The thing with your arm." "Yes. You went black all the way up, like armor, but your skin, I know." "How did you?" Harry looked at Ron. Harry weighed it. Harry had been keeping it private. Harry had been keeping it private because Shanks had asked him to keep it private. Harry was also, he understood now, among the people he had chosen, and he was not going to lie to them about the thing he was. "I'll tell you," he said. "Not all of it, not tonight, but I'll tell you the shape. There's a man who raised me, Ron. Not my aunt and uncle. A man who found me when I was 6. He taught me certain things that aren't wand things. They're called hacky. They come from a different sea, from a different world almost. He's you'd like him. Is he a wizard? Number, then how can he? Everyone can if they're taught. Most people aren't. Most people never meet the man who teaches them. I was lucky. He is teaching me. He will, when we know each other longer, teach you if you want to learn. He's told me I can share it with the friends I choose." Ron was silent a long time. Then he said to the fire, "I want to learn." "All right. Will Hermione?" "Yes, she'll pretend she's skeptical for a week. Then she'll demand the bibliography. There isn't one. Then she'll accept the lack of one and proceed, because she is Hermione, to research it anyway. We will, I expect, end up with the only footnoted hacky manual in history. It will be excellent." Ron laughed. It was a small, honest laugh. It was, Harry noticed, the first laugh Ron had laughed in an hour. They sat a while. "Harry, what you did with the troll, that was, I'm never going to forget that. It wasn't, nobody will, the whole school'll know by morning." "Probably." "How are you so calm?" Harry considered. "I'm not," he said truthfully. "I'm just practiced." Ron was right about the school. By breakfast, The story had already, as stories in a boarding school do, developed arms and legs and an extra mouth. By lunch, a version had Harry wrestling the troll single-handed while Ron wept encouragement. By dinner, a version had the troll bowing to him before dying. Hagrid, who came down to the Gryffindor table that evening on an errand of his own devising, had pulled Harry aside by the ear. "Yes, shouldn't he been there," Hagrid hissed, in a whisper that was audible generously to the whole Ravenclaw table. "I know. Your dad would have done the same thing. I know. Dawn do it again. I won't. Unless you have ter." Hagrid. "Well, no." Hagrid rubbed the back of his neck, a gesture Harry had seen Shanks do. Hagrid, Harry thought, was a man whose bigness was all on the outside. He would have made Shanks laugh. "Ye did right by the girl anyway. And Ron, and listen, Dumbledore wants a word. Now, Termora, after Transfiguration, he'll send for ye." Dumbledore's office was up a revolving staircase that lived behind a gargoyle. The gargoyle sprang aside when Hagrid, escorting Harry, said "peppermint humbug," which made Hagrid wink as if he had, for once, got in on a joke. The office itself was a tall tower room that smelled of old parchment and lemon drops, and faintly of the sea. Harry caught that last one with his hacky sense before his nose. The office had been visited, recently, by somebody who had walked a salt beach within the last 24 hours. Not Dumbledore. A visitor. Dumbledore sat behind a large desk, his half-moon spectacles on the end of his nose, a pile of paperwork beside his elbow that he was plainly ignoring. A red-gold bird, a phoenix, Harry had read about these, perched on a gold stand by the window. "Harry," Dumbledore said. His voice was, in person, quieter than it had been in the Great Hall. "Thank you for coming. Please sit. Tea? No thank you, sir. A lemon drop? No thank you." Dumbledore put down a small yellow sweet he had been unwrapping. "A very polite 11-year-old. A rare thing. Harry, I will not waste your time or mine. I have been trying to find you for several years." "Yes, sir. You knew." "Yes, sir." "Ah." Dumbledore's eyes, brilliant blue over the half-moons, did not waver. "Then there will be no need for me to pretend to be surprised that you exist. Good. May I ask, Harry, who it was that, shall we say, arranged for me not to find you?" Harry considered. The question, he knew, was two questions. Dumbledore was also asking, politely, whether Harry would answer. "A friend, sir," Harry said. "A very good friend." "A wizard?" "Number. A muggle?" "No, sir, he's a third sort of person. Perhaps you do not have a word for him here." Dumbledore sat back. He put his fingertips together. "How remarkable," he said. "Harry, I want to tell you first that I am not going to press. I have waited 7 years. I can wait a little longer. I am going to ask you some questions. You may answer any of them or none. I will not be offended by your silence." "All right, sir." "Good." Dumbledore considered. "Are you happy?" Harry blinked. He had not expected that. "Yes, sir." "Are you well cared for?" "Yes, sir." "Are you safe?" "Yes, sir." "Are you safe here?" Harry thought with particular care about that one. "Yes, sir," he said. "For now." "For now." Dumbledore's eyes sharpened. "May I ask what you mean by that, Harry?" Harry hesitated. Then, because Dumbledore had asked gently and had kept to his word, he said, "There is a man, sir, on the sea. Not the one whose name nobody says, a different one. He wants me. He has been trying to reach me for 5 years. My friend has held him off. But he knows I am in Britain now, and he is looking, and I don't think he will stop. His name? Corvus, sir." "The Admiral of the Gale." Dumbledore made a small, thoughtful sound. He did not, Harry noted, look surprised. He looked, instead, like a man who had been half aware of a thing and was grateful to have it confirmed. "Thank you, Harry." "Sir, yes." "Who has been visiting your office, recently, someone who has been to the sea." Dumbledore's eyes flickered. He smiled, very small. "Ah," he said. "Your friend's friend, I expect, or your friend, depends, would you describe him? Tall, quiet, gray in his hair, reads everything, doesn't smile often but smiles honestly when he does." "Mr. Beckman," said Dumbledore. Harry let out a breath he had not noticed he had been holding. "Yes, sir." "He has been to me twice in the last month, Harry. Once to introduce himself very courteously, once to leave a note. I have found him in both interviews entirely sensible. You are in, it appears, excellent hands. I have also, and I will admit it without pride, been forced to revise several of my assumptions about what the next 7 years will look like. In a pleasant way, not a bad one. Sir, you won't. I will not, Dumbledore said gently. Try to remove you from your friend. I will not try to relocate you. I will not try to insist that you spend your summers anywhere other than where Mr. Beckman has thoughtfully arranged. The one thing I will ask, the only thing, is that you allow me to help if help is needed. Will you do that? Yes, sir. Good. Dumbledore's eyes warmed. Very good, thank you, Harry. Sir, the thing on the 3rd floor. Dumbledore did not visibly move. His eyes, however, went very careful. Yes, he said, I know it's there. I suspected you might. I'm not going to go near it. That would be wise. Someone else is, though. Yes, Harry, someone is. That someone, however, will not succeed. I have, how shall I put this, reinforced. Please do not trouble yourself. Attend to your lessons. Attend to your friends. Attend to Quidditch, at which I hear you are already showing a atavistic promise. Professor, yes. The someone. The one in the turban, he isn't himself. Dumbledore's eyes held Harry's. I know, he said quietly. I have known for some months, Harry. Kindly do not speak of it again. And if you can find it in yourself, do not act on it. Not yet. I am not asking you to be passive. I am asking you for the moment to be patient. Will you? Yes, sir. Thank you. Fawkes on the gold perch made a small pleased sound. Dumbledore looked at Harry for a long moment. Harry thought, without meaning to, this is a man who is lonely. This is a man who has carried a great deal by himself for a great many years. He did not say it. He only stood when Dumbledore stood, and shook the offered hand and bowed slightly, because that was what he had been taught to do with someone much older, and went back down the revolving stair. At the bottom, he did not go to Gryffindor. He went to the Owlery. He wrote in a small, neat hand, Shanks, Dumbledore, and I had tea. Well, no tea, he says hello. He says Ben has been civil. He says the castle will hold. I am all right. Q is not alone in his head. D knows. D is patient. D has asked me to be patient. I have agreed. Quidditch is Saturday. Hermione is on the team now, by which I mean on my side. Ron also. I love you. H. He tied it to Hedwig. Warm, he said. And fast and careful, please. Saturday came. Gryffindor versus Slytherin. First match of the season. First match ever for a first-year seeker who, the bookmakers of the corridor had noted, might not last past the quarter hour. Harry mounted his broom. The sky was clean, the morning cold, the crowd a noise that he felt more than heard. Wood beside him said a great many things in the last 30 seconds before whistle, most of them nothing, and finished with, just catch the bloody snitch, Potter. Yes, Captain. Good lad. The whistle went. Harry kicked off. The game played around him. He flew high. He let the snitch be a small gold thing his eyes could find. He let the broom be a thing his body had by now simply learned. He flew the way he had learned to walk. With half of his mind, he tracked the snitch, patiently, in the lazy circle of a boy who had all morning. With the other half, he listened. He listened to the pitch. He listened to the stands. He listened most of all to Quirrell. Quirrell was in the teacher's stand with a book open on his lap. He was not reading. Quirrell was muttering. Harry did not need to be near him to hear him. Harry's hacky sense was perfectly adequate. Quirrell was saying very softly, very fast, a counterspell, or rather a spell. A jinxing spell. A broom jinx. The target of the jinx was Harry. He felt beneath him the broom begin to shudder. Oh, he said. Down below, Hermione, he could feel her. A bright, frantic point halfway up the stands had seen Quirrell and was moving. Hermione did not know the counter. Hermione would figure it out. Hermione would, in about a minute, have set fire to something. Harry trusted Hermione. He did not, however, have a minute. He closed the door in his head. He reached only a little. He found Quirrell. He found behind Quirrell the other one, the second man in the same skull. He did not push. He did not speak. He merely, with the full weight of himself, looked. Through his hacky sense, he looked the way a man looks at another man across a table. He said, without saying it, stop. The jinx broke. It did not, he knew, break because he had broken it. It broke because the second man inside Quirrell, who had been, for 6 weeks now, carefully not reaching for Harry, had just felt something reach for him. Something larger than a first-year wizard. Something, and this was what made Quirrell's mouth go dry and the second man inside him retreat, that the second man had not, in his long, crooked life, felt in quite that shape before. It was one syllable, spoken in no tongue, from an 11-year-old on a broom. It said, "Remember." The broom steadied. Harry did not pause to celebrate. He was already diving. He had, in the 40 seconds of the jinx, seen the snitch 3 times actually at the corners of his attention and noted where it was drifting. He dove. The wind took his hair back. He stretched out his hand. He did not close his eyes. He did not, at the last second, clutch. He merely let his hand arrive where the snitch was. The snitch arrived in his hand. The crowd went up like a struck bell. Gryffindor scarves, Gryffindor fists, Gryffindor hats. Wood was screaming. Somewhere Ron was screaming. Somewhere Hermione was saying, in her clear, careful voice, to a confused teacher, "He's fine, it's all right. It was just a small problem with the broom. It's fine, he's fine." Harry pulled up 20 feet from the ground, dismounted and stood and bowed, not to the stands, but toward the teacher's stand directly, and by name at Professor Quirrell. Quirrell, who was white, inclined his head. Behind his eyes, Harry saw it, the second man had already gone back down. That evening in the common room, Hermione sat between Harry and Ron. She had brought down a blanket. She had brought down hot chocolate. She had brought down, because Hermione always had one spare, a book. She handed Harry a biscuit. "Harry," she said. "I need," Hermione said carefully, "to learn to do what you do. All right, with the arm thing. All right, with the whatever you did at the match. Not the arm thing, the looking thing. That's harder. I am not known for finding things hard. I am known for finding them irritating and then doing them." Harry laughed. Ron laughed. Hermione solemnly did not laugh. Then a moment later she laughed too. "I'll teach you what I can," Harry said. "I'm not qualified. I'm still being taught. But what I know you'll know. What I don't I'll ask. Of the man on the beach. Of the man on the beach. Will we ever meet him?" Harry looked into the fire. He thought about Shanks, sitting on a stone in a field on the first day, sitting on the porch on the Blacksand beach on the last day of the last holiday, and he smiled. "Yes," he said. "At Christmas, if you want, he'd like you." "Would he like me?" "Very much. Even though I'm a girl, a book girl. Hermione." Harry reached out. He did what Shanks had done to him in Gertie's bedroom one London evening a long summer ago. He put his hand lightly on the back of Hermione's neck. "You are the one Shanks calls the one who tells you number he is going to love you." Hermione made a small, very pleased noise. Ron, beside them, was eating chocolate with both hands. Ron was also, Harry saw, quite carefully pretending not to watch this. Ron had the beginnings of a thought on his face. It was not jealousy. It was its more useful cousin, which was ambition. Ron wanted very badly to be the kind of boy that the man on the beach would call something as good. Harry patted Ron on the shoulder. "All 3 of us," he said. "At Christmas, get your mum's permission." "She'll say yes," Ron said at once. "I'll tell her there's a man with a sword. She'll say yes in 3 seconds. She'll love him." They ate chocolate. Somewhere far away, a red-haired man on a porch opened a letter by the light of a hurricane lamp and read it twice, and put it down, and watched the tide coming in, and said aloud to nobody, "Remember. Good lad. Very good lad." And high in a tower of Hogwarts, a man took off a purple turban in a dark room and did not, for 3 quiet minutes, speak at all. Christmas came to the island in the way Christmas comes to places that have not, for 20 years, had a child in them, cautiously, then, finding it wanted, with enthusiasm. Lucky Roo had put up a tree. It was a palm tree. He had tied ribbons to it. He had baked, somehow with a hob and no sense, a pie the size of a wheel. Ben had produced, from the Edinburgh room, 3 books, wrapped in brown paper, one for each child arriving. Yassop had whittled Ron a small bow the height of his forearm and promised to teach him to use it. Shanks himself, the night before Harry and Ron and Hermione arrived, had spent an hour on the porch folding a paper crane from a cut-open envelope and muttering to himself until Ben had asked him, very politely, what on earth he was doing, and Shanks had said, "I don't remember how to make 2 of them. It turns out I don't remember." 2 cranes, Ben said. "A woman showed me once, a long time ago. It doesn't matter. I'll remember." He did not remember. When the children arrived, on the morning of the 23rd, on a cutter steered by Yassop through the cove, Shanks was standing on the beach with Ben and Lucky, and he had, in his one hand, one paper crane. He gave it to Hermione without explanation. Hermione, who in the 2 minutes since landing had already learned that this was a house where things were given without explanation and accepted without fuss, put it in her pocket, and that night in her bedroom at the top of the house, set it on the sill by the window where the moon could find it. Ron, on arrival, walked up to Shanks and stuck out his hand. "Ronald Weasley," he said, with great formality. "Thank you for teaching my friend." "Pleasure, Mr. Weasley," Shanks said. He shook Ron's hand. The whole shake took perhaps 3 seconds. Ron emerged from it looking much less nervous than he had been expecting to. "Welcome to the island. Your room is the one with the blue door. Hermione's is the one with the red. You may, I am told, eat at all hours, including between hours, which is a time of day unique to this house. Questions?" Is it true," Ron said, that you killed a giant sea serpent in 5 strokes? Number 4. Oh, I'll tell you the story after dinner if you ask twice. Okay. Hermione, your mother sent a list of allergies. Lucky has read it. He will not cook you anything you are allergic to. He is, however, going to try to cook you something you did not know you could eat. Are you prepared? I believe so, Hermione said carefully. Grand, Ben will show you the library. Harry, yes. A word, come on, walk. They walked the beach. The tide was in. The sky was a pale, thin December blue, not quite the blue Harry remembered. The island in December had its own weather. A few early gulls were doing small, precise patrols. The black sand crunched under their boots. For a long time Shanks did not speak. Harry did not press. Harry, Shanks said at last, yes, at the match, the Jinx. Yes, you reached. A little. Tell me, Harry told him. He told him everything. Quirrell's mutter, the shudder in the broom, the decision not to push. The one syllable. Shanks walked with his one hand in his pocket and listened. When Harry had finished, Shanks walked on for a while as if he were turning the whole matter over like a shell in his pocket. Harry, he said finally, yes, you did exactly the right thing. I want to say that first because I am about to say the second thing, and I do not want the second thing to cancel the first. You did exactly the right thing. Your teacher is proud. All right? All right. The second thing. Shanks stopped. He turned. He looked Harry in the eye. The man in the purple turban's friend, the second man, he has felt you. He knows now there is a thing in you he had not prepared for. He is not, Harry, going to leave that alone. He's going to probe. He's going to test. He's going to, over the next weeks, try to find out what you are and what you are not. I know. Good. Then I want you to do, this is not an order, it is a request. I want you to do 2 things. First, under no circumstances do you try to defeat him on your own. He is not, in his essence, a first-year problem. He is a problem for older and more tired men, and when he comes for you properly, I will be at the school within the hour, and Dumbledore will be in his own office, and between the 3 of us we will give him a very long afternoon. You understand? I understand. Second, I do not want you to hide your weight, not anymore. Hiding it has served you. Keep being kind. Keep being yourself. But when the second man sends something at you, Harry, reach. Push. Make him understand that the child is not a child in the way he expected. Make him nervous. A nervous enemy, Harry, is an enemy who makes mistakes. That's a change. It's a change. It's because the window for quiet has closed. He has noticed you. Noticing is the first half of hunting. The second half is approach. We give him now reason not to approach. Yes. Yes. Good lad. They walked a while. Shanks. Dumbledore said a thing. He said the man in the turban will not succeed. He said he had reinforced. He meant whatever is behind the door on the 3rd floor. He was very calm. Harry, Shanks glanced at him. I am going to tell you because you asked and because you can hold it. What is behind the door on the 3rd floor is, we think, a small, unremarkable stone, which happens to be the last working sample in the world of something called the Philosopher's Stone. It is, to a dying wizard, the difference between dying and not. It was made by a man named Flamel. It is on loan, you might say. Dumbledore has concealed it behind 7 increasingly ridiculous protections. One of them is a 3-headed dog. Yes, I know. One of them is a game of chess. Yes. The point is, the second man inside your teacher wants it. He wants it because he is, at the moment, very close to being nothing. The stone would make him something again. Dumbledore is letting him come. Because sooner or later, men like that come anyway. Better he come through a 7-layered fence than, say, through the front door on a bad Tuesday. Do you understand? Yes. All right. Your job, Harry, is still not to be the man who stops him. Your job is to be the boy who buys Dumbledore the time he needs, and you have been doing that beautifully. Harry nodded. He was quiet a long moment. Shanks, he said. Corvus. Where is he? Shanks stopped. He looked out to sea. He did not answer for a long moment. Closer than I'd have liked, he said at last. His ship came within 200 miles of the cove in Cornwall 6 days ago. Ben, the real Ben, not the pretend Ben in Corvus's letters, has been playing a long game with him that is going to end. Soon, in a place of our choosing. He does not yet know that the man he thinks is his inside man is, in fact, my inside man. When he finds out, Harry, which he will, when we want him to, he will come. Here. Number not here if I can help it. He will come where we call him. When? Not this Christmas. Good. I didn't want this Christmas spoiled. It's your first. It's theirs. You'll remember it your whole life. They turned and walked back along the beach. The ribbons in the palm tree fluttered. High on the porch, where Lucky Roo was attempting to sing a carol in the wrong key. Hermione and Ron were, already, sitting on the steps. Hermione holding the crane. Ron drinking something Lucky had given him which he had not yet identified and had elected not to ask about. And they were, both of them, watching Harry come up the beach with the one-armed man beside him. And there was no envy in either of their faces. Only, Harry saw, something like contentment. As if a shape they had been carrying in their heads since October had, in walking up a beach, resolved. Christmas Eve, they had the goose. The goose was Lucky's. The goose was enormous. The goose, Lucky claimed, had been caught in the wild by himself that morning with his bare hands, which was, Ben observed mildly, completely impossible, and therefore not to be disproved. Yassop got out a fiddle. Ben got out a surprisingly delicate tenor voice that had, he said, once earned him a free meal at a pub in Galway. Hermione, whom they had put in charge of the pie, burned the crust and cried and laughed and fed it to the dog anyway, and Lucky got out a new pie he had been keeping in reserve for exactly this, and so it was all right. Shanks, from his chair, told stories. He told a story about a whale that had thought itself an island for 50 years, and had been very angry when the tide finally proved it wrong. He told one about a music teacher on a long-dead island who had played a violin to the sunset every night of her life. He told one about the time he, as a young man, had had a very cold drink with a gold-cloaked captain who liked the color red, and he did not tell the end of that story because it was not his to tell, but he said at the end, "There are, children, only 5 people in the world whose names are worth fighting in order to keep, and I have known 3 of them. Ben is 1. Yassop is 2. Lucky is 3. Harry," he looked across the table, and his one eye was very bright in the lamplight. "I expect to know before I die 2 more, and I think I may already." Ron, pink-cheeked, looked at Hermione. Hermione, pink-cheeked, looked at Ron. They did not understand yet what had just been said about them. They would understand later. They would remember it exactly, years on. Harry understood. Harry, for the second time since he had met Shanks, did not know what to do with his face. Yassop, blessedly, played a jig. On Boxing Day, Shanks took the 3 of them into the bowl of the valley, to a patch of grass where the palms did not grow, and he taught them the word. Only the word. Not the weight of it, not yet. "Say it," he said. "Don't expect anything, just say it, meet it, get used to its shape in the mouth." Hermione said it first. She said it as if she were testing a bell. The bell did not ring. Ron said it second. He said it as if he were saying it to himself on a dark stair. The stair did not turn into a ladder. Harry said it. His forearm with the smallest shiver went briefly iron and back. Hermione stared. Ron stared. Shanks laughed softly. "There it is," he said. "Don't be discouraged, Hermione. Don't be discouraged, Ron. You do not fail what you have not yet tried. The word is a seed. Plant it. Come back to it. It will, in its own time, put up a shoot." Harry did not get iron skin in a month. Harry got iron skin in a year. A year, Ron said. A year, Hermione, less, you have the knack already. I felt it on your hand at breakfast. Ron, longer, but more interesting. You are, I suspect, the one of the three of you who will wake first to the third kind. Hermione looked up, sharp. The third kind, she said. Oh, good, Shanks said to the sky. I was hoping I wouldn't have to explain that twice. On the last night on the porch, after Ron had gone to bed and Hermione had gone to the library and the lamps had been turned low, Shanks and Harry sat alone. You're not going to come with me on the train, Shanks said. Number. Ben will see you onto it. Yes, Harry, yes. The next time we see each other, it will be in a different kind of weather. I know, you know. I've been feeling it. The castle is something is coming before the summer. Shanks nodded. He looked out at the black water. He said almost to himself, I had hoped for another year of quiet. I'm ready. You are, you don't have to be, but you are. I had good teachers. You had one good teacher, Shanks said, and the rest of us have been the afterward. Shanks, thank you, Shanks laughed softly. You keep thanking me. I keep meaning it. I know you do, they sat. Later than either of them quite realized, because the lamps by the porch were the kind that do not announce the hour. Shanks stood and put his one hand on Harry's head and said, Bed, train in the morning, and Harry, yes, remember. I remember. Number, I mean it as a word this time. Oh, Harry said it. The skin on his forearm went black for a second, for 3, for 5. It held. It held longer than it ever had. The porch lamp beside them brightened half a shade, as lamps do, near a man doing the thing that to lamps is not quite a lamp's business to see. There, Shanks said softly. There. They went to bed. In the morning, Harry hugged Shanks. Shanks hugged him back. Ron, awkward, held out his hand. Shanks shook it. Hermione stepped in and, without warning, gave Shanks a hug so fierce that Shanks, one-armed, took a surprised little step back and then, grinning, wrapped his one arm around her and said, quietly over her head, Don't let him do anything stupid. I won't, Hermione said into Shanks's shoulder. Chapter 5 end. Chapter 6. Freedom's Edge. The spring term at Hogwarts went too fast and too slowly at once. Classes filled. The Quidditch Cup came down to a Gryffindor. Ravenclaw match Harry caught the snitch in, quietly and without theatrics, in 12 minutes. Snape's potions became, between their author and their student, a kind of running quarrel that had long since stopped pretending to be about potions. Hermione, over 6 weeks, learned to hold armament hacky for the count of 2. Ron, over 6 weeks, could not, but had, on a wet Tuesday in March when Lavender Brown had made him suddenly and ridiculously angry, caused 3 flagons on a long table in the Great Hall to go very quiet, for a single second, in a way the others had felt and nobody else had. Shanks wrote. Shanks wrote weakly. Shanks wrote, Keep going, be patient, I am watching. And the splinter on the 3rd floor got worse. Harry felt it in his sleep now. The castle felt it too. The castle was, in Harry's hacky sense, a slow, patient breathing thing, and the splinter was, in the castle's side, an ache that could not be scratched. At night, the splinter throbbed. During the day, the splinter held. Something in it was making small, persistent attempts. Something was finding, one by one, the increasingly ridiculous layers Dumbledore had placed. By the end of May, the splinter had moved. Not far, down, by 1 layer. By the 1st week of June, down by 3. By the 2nd week of June, down by 5. On the morning of the 10th of June, a Wednesday, a bright day, Dumbledore left Hogwarts. The owl that summoned him was from the Ministry. Harry felt the owl arrive. He felt Dumbledore receive it. He felt from 4 floors down, with a clarity that had nothing to do with having been told, the small, cold pause of a man who has been waiting for exactly this owl and has, despite knowing it was coming, been pricked by it. It was a summons. Ministry. Urgent. Dumbledore, to the students, to the staff, to the house elves, said he would be back by the morning. He smiled. He told McGonagall, quietly, over tea, 3 small things she was to attend to while he was away. He put on his hat. He went to the front gates and turned, just before the boundary, and looked, for a long moment, up at the castle. Harry felt the look. The look was not at the students. It was at the splinter. It was an apology. Dumbledore was gone. Harry went straight to the owlery. Hedwig. Hedwig, who had been half asleep, opened one eye and did not appear to need the rest of the sentence. "Go," Harry said. "Go fast, Crabbe, just Crabbe, he'll come." Hedwig went. Ron was at his elbow. "Harry, it's tonight, Ron. He's been waiting for Dumbledore to go. Tonight he goes through the door." "What do? "We wait for Shanks." "Harry, what if we wait?" Hermione caught them in the corridor below. She had, Harry noticed, a small satchel already packed. Hermione had quietly been packing a satchel every morning for 6 days. Hermione, after 2 years of hacky training she had not yet had, would nevertheless have been, Harry thought, a better field officer than most grown men. "If you say," Hermione said before Harry could speak, "that I am to stay in the common room, I will hit you." "I was going to say," Harry said, "that you're with me, both of you. Shanks says reach. He didn't say reach alone." They waited until dusk. They waited in the Gryffindor common room, through a supper Harry could not afterwards remember eating. They waited until Percy had gone to bed. They waited until the twins, grumbling, had given up on a round of cards and wandered off. They waited until the common room was empty and the fire was low, and then they got up and went. The third-floor corridor was, as always, theatrically forbidden, and as always, unmanned. Hogwarts had a grand sense of drama that did not extend unaccountably to actual guards. The door was ajar. Harry's hand went to it. He paused. "Hermione." "Yes. Anything moves behind us that isn't Shanks, you shout. Loud as you can, I'll come." "I'll shout." "Ron." "Yes." "If anything in there comes at me faster than I can move, you Wingardium the heaviest thing in the room and drop it on it. Don't aim, drop." "Right. Both of you. Whatever happens down there, you do not jump in for me. You back me up from a distance. I am not being brave. I am being what Shanks calls precise." "All right," said Hermione. "All right," said Ron. Harry pushed open the door. Behind the door was a very large three-headed dog asleep. "Oh," Ron whispered. The dog was asleep because somebody in the room had already played a harp. The harp was still there, enchanted, standing on its stand, plucking itself lazily with invisible fingers. The somebody had opened the trapdoor under the dog's middle paw, and the somebody had, through the trapdoor, gone down. Harry didn't speak. He pointed. Hermione nodded. Ron, pale, nodded. They crept, each in turn, past the vast sleeping flank. The trapdoor stood open. Below, blackness. A faint green glow somewhere far below. Harry dropped first. He fell into a bed of devil's snare that was already cut back where somebody else had, ahead of him, cut it back. He rolled off it onto stone. Hermione landed beside him. Ron landed on Hermione. The snare, disturbed, reached lazily for Ron. Hermione, with the clinical patience of a girl who had read the book, burned it back with a small, sharp flame. They went on. Keys. A room full of flying winged keys, and on the floor at the far end, a door ajar. Somebody had, ahead of them, caught the right key. Harry, reaching with his hacky sense, could feel that the room's flyers were tired, exhausted. They had been chasing the previous intruder for a long time and had not yet quite settled. He chose, walked, did not run, and found the right key, a small bent one. The second man had not bothered to lock up behind himself. Chess. A vast chessboard, white pieces on the far side, black pieces waiting for them. Ron, and this was, Harry saw, the thing Ron had been quietly training for all year without knowing it, because Ron had been the youngest of 7 children and had played chess for his life in 7 different ways, took one look, squared his shoulders, and said, "I'll be the knight." Ron, "I'll be the knight. Hermione, you take the queen. Harry, you take the bishop. I know how to lose this one. I know how to lose it so the bishop is free at the end. I just need you to do what I say." "Ron, Harry, I'm doing this." Harry looked at him. He nodded. He took his square. They played. Ron sacrificed. Ron sacrificed with a calm that Harry had not seen on him before. It was not hacky. It was Ron. It was, Harry thought, the thing Shanks had said would wake in Ron first. Not the third form of hacky, but the thing beneath the third form, which was knowing, at a table, where to throw yourself. Ron took the knight's hit for them on the 13th move. The White Queen's stone fist caught him across the shoulder and he went down. Hermione cried out. Harry felt her cry out with his hacky sense before he heard her. and Harry, in 3 moves, checkmated the White King because Ron had, by his losing, opened exactly the lane Harry needed. "Checkmate," Harry said quietly. The White King threw down his crown. Harry crossed the board. He knelt beside Ron. Ron was pale but breathing. Ron's shoulder was, he said, probably the worst it had ever been, but I can wiggle it, so, look, wiggling. Ron, Harry said. "Stay here." "Harry, I need you to stay here. If Shanks comes, point him through. If anything comes back up through here that isn't me, you Wingardium the board and drop it on them." "Hermione, with you." "Hermione, with you." Harry looked at her. He nodded. They went on. Troll dead, the second man had killed it, walking through. Potions, a puzzle Hermione read and solved in 2 minutes because the second man had in the night solved it in 3 and let the solutions refill themselves for anyone who came behind. "Only 1 bottle at the end," Hermione said, handing Harry the small phial. "Enough for 1, the other one is to go back. I'll go back, Harry, I'll get Ron, you go." "Hermione, Harry." Harry took the phial. "Hermione, yes. If Shanks comes, I'll send him through, I know." She hugged him, fierce and fast. He hugged her back. She drank her phial. He drank his. She went back through the purple flame. He stepped through the black. The last room was round and lit dim and empty but for a mirror on a dais in the middle, and standing before the mirror a man in a purple turban. Quirrell turned. "Potter," he said. He did not stutter. "Professor." "Oh, come, you know." "I know." "Come in, Mr. Potter. Come right in. Don't be shy." "I am very glad you are here." Harry walked in. He did not hurry. He had, he found, no fear to hurry for, not because he was brave, but because Shanks had taught him, over 5 long years. That fear was a decision you made about speed, and that you could, in a small room before a mirror, decide otherwise. He looked at the mirror. Its frame was carved. Its inscription, in a letter form he could read only because Hermione had already read it to him in the library 3 months ago, said, "Erist stra eru oit ube cafru oit on wosi." He did not solve the inscription. He did not need to. He felt the mirror. The mirror was an ache. It was a hunger wrapped in gold. He did not look at it long. "I can't make it work," Quirrell said, almost conversational. "The mirror, it shows me giving the stone to my master. It will not, however, give me the stone, most inconvenient." "Maybe you don't want to give it," Quirrell laughed. "Oh, the cheek of this boy, number I want to give it. Oh, I want to, I have never wanted anything more." And yet, his voice changed. It did not become a voice Harry had heard before. It became thinner, colder, older. It said from somewhere on the back of Quirrell's head, "Let me speak to the boy." "Master, you are not strong enough. I have strength enough for this. Let me speak to him." Quirrell reached up. He unwound the purple turban. Harry did not flinch. On the back of Quirrell's head was a face. A second face, thin as a memory, white as a scraped plate with slits where a nose should have been and eyes that were red and clever and alone. Voldemort. The noise, Shanks had said, of a small man who had made himself larger than he should have been. Harry looked at the noise. He took the measure of the noise. He did not speak. "Harry Potter," Voldemort whispered. "How you have grown." "Thank you. See what I have become. See what is left of me. I have no body of my own, so I must share Quirrell's. I drink the blood of unicorns to survive. I have been cast down to this, Potter. I have been kept alive by pity, by a poor servant's flesh. But there is hope. There is always hope. And you, Harry, you will help me. Number, I will give you your parents back. Number, I can, Harry. I can do great things. Stand aside. Help me take the stone. Imagine a night in my mother's arms, a morning with my father. I will not kill you. I killed them because they stood in my way. You do not have to stand in my way." "No," Harry said, and he said it the way Ben had taught him, clear, without shake. "No, because you are lying." "No, because even if you were not lying, a night does not wash out the day you made. No, because my parents would not, even to get back, wish for a world that had you in it. Number, then." "No," Harry said a 4th time. Voldemort's voice went cold. "Seize him." Quirrell turned. Quirrell moved. Harry was already moving to the left of the dais, away from the mirror, toward an angle of the room where Quirrell would have to turn through a pillar to reach him. Quirrell, coming at him, drew a wand. "Avada," Harry, small, with the word on his lips, said it, not the one syllable for remember, the one underneath it. the deeper one. The one Shanks had not even once taught him, because Shanks had said the third form does not learn, it wakes. It woke. It came up from the bottom of him, not angry, not frightened, but clear. It came up because the man in front of him had asked him to trade his mother for nothing. It came up because the man in front of him had killed his father for being in a doorway. It came up because the man in front of him was offering, in a dim room, the one deal Harry was going to refuse for the rest of his life. It came up because Harry, who had been trained for 5 years on a beach to know who he was, knew, at this moment, exactly who he was and was very calm about it. It was not a shout. It was not a push. It was a presence. It filled the room, all of the room, and it said, without saying and without sound, I am here. I am not yours. Nothing in this room is yours. Quirrell's wand stopped. Quirrell's knees bent. Quirrell fell to one knee and then the other. Quirrell's eyes rolled up. Quirrell's mouth fell open. Voldemort's face on the back of his head shrieked, a noise like a dozen copper pots thrown into a well, and did not shriek a second time, because Voldemort, for perhaps the first time in 20 years, had met a thing he could not threaten, and had been, not harmed, but seen. And behind Harry, in the doorway that should still have been a black flame, the black flame had gone out. And through the darkened arch, walking without a hurry, came a man in a long dark coat with red hair and one arm. "Afternoon, Tom," Shanks said pleasantly. Voldemort's head jerked up. "You," he hissed. "Me, we haven't been introduced. I'm not from around here. I am, however, quite fond of the boy." "Red-haired, also me, yes, let's not belabor it. Harry, step back, please." Harry stepped back. The conquerors held softly around him. It did not fade. It did not, Harry sensed, need to. Quirrell was still on his knees. Quirrell was not in any meaningful way available. Shanks walked up. He looked down at Voldemort. He did not draw his sword. "Tom," he said, "I was going to leave you to Dumbledore. I had, in fact, a standing agreement with him on this matter. Dumbledore got held up this afternoon by 3 very officious men at the Ministry whose owls arrived in a suspiciously neat sequence. I expect Dumbledore will be back in a couple of hours. In the meantime, shall we?" "You cannot kill me," Voldemort whispered. "Quite right," Shanks said pleasantly. "I can't. You have, what is it, the term escapes me, 6, 7, small leftover houses of you lying about the world. Horcruxes, yes, I'm aware. Dumbledore tells me everything. I am not here to kill you, Tom. I am here to evict you. Your lease, as it were, on Professor Quirrell has expired. We will now be returning Professor Quirrell to his, rather limited, rather sad self. Observe." Shanks drew his sword. It was not a flashy draw. It was a slow one. It was the draw of a man who had drawn his sword a very great many times. The blade came out of its scabbard in one clean motion and lifted, not up, not across, but out, the point hovering level, a hand's breadth from Quirrell's forehead. "Tom," Shanks said gently, "I am going to make a cut now. This is the cut I use when I want to cut a thing that is not where I am looking. You are not in Quirrell's body, not in the way a body is in a body. You are stitched in. I am going to take the stitches out. I recommend you do not scream. Screaming tends to cost you, at your weight class, about a week of recovery per decibel. I will," Shanks moved his sword. It was a small motion, a wrist motion, a punctuation. There was a sound like a seam being ripped out of a good coat. There was a noise like a kettle that has been put on the fire and is changing its mind. And there was, behind Quirrell, a moment where the very air seemed to hold something, a thin, dark, raging shape, and then let it go. The shape fled. It fled screaming. It fled through the stones of Hogwarts, which parted for one long second to let it out, and closed again behind it as a mother's hand closes a door behind a tantruming child. Quirrell collapsed. He collapsed the rest of the way. He collapsed onto the flagstones, and he did not, Harry noted with a clinical hacky ear, die. Quirrell was, in fact, sleeping. Shanks sheathed his sword. He turned to Harry. He considered him. "Harry." "Yes, conquerors." "Yes, how do you feel?" "I don't know." "All right, you will tomorrow. Come here." Harry came. Shanks opened his one arm. Harry stepped in. Shanks held him not long but fully with the weight of a man who had been holding his breath since this morning's owl and set him gently back. Good lad, shall we find the stone? It's in his pocket. Is it? I can feel it. He had it. The mirror gave it to him. Did it? He didn't notice. The mirror doesn't give it to people who want it for themselves. It didn't give it to him because he didn't quite want it for himself. He wanted it for the other one. That's why he couldn't work the mirror, he said, but it gave it to me for a second when I came in because I don't want it. Say that again, Harry. The mirror gave it to me for a second because I don't want it, then I put it back. Shanks stared at him. You did what? I put it back. It's in the mirror. I don't know how I did it, but it's back there. I think the mirror is on our side. I think it's doing the right thing. Shanks made a small, slow whistle. He crossed to the mirror. He looked at it. He did not, Harry noted with interest, look into it. Shanks did not generally use mirrors. Inscribe, he read, backwards. Show you yourself, not your heart. Well, mirror's a decent thing for a mirror. Harry, I am going to leave the stone in the mirror. Dumbledore can come and retrieve it with more knowledgeable fingers than mine in the morning. You and we are going to leave this room. We are going to take Quirrell with us. We are going to deliver him to Madame Pomfrey, and we are going to rescue your friend Ron, whom I note you sent up the corridor against his strenuous objection, and we are going to sit, you and I and Hermione, on the steps of the Great Hall, and we are going to wait for Dumbledore. Shanks, yes. There's one more thing. Yes, Corvus. Shanks looked at him. He smiled. It was a small, private smile. Corvus, he said, is, as of this morning, on the bottom of a cove on the northwestern coast of Scotland. Ben handled him at 6 a.m. I had hoped to tell you after this was over. Consider it told. He's dead, yes. Ben did not give him the courtesy of a conversation. Ben is sometimes more practical than I am. The man's crew has scattered. His ship has been sunk. The Admiral of the Gale is an old name now. He will not trouble you again. Harry let out a long breath. All right, he said. All right. Can we go? We can go. Dumbledore returned at 3:20. He found, on the steps of the Great Hall, a red-haired man with one arm and 3 11-year-olds. One of the 11-year-olds had a bandaged shoulder and was eating a large piece of cake. One of the 11-year-olds, the girl, had the very, very calm expression of a person who has been running on adrenaline for 6 hours and intends now to cry for a week. One of the 11-year-olds, the boy, the one he had come to speak with, was, to Dumbledore's surprise, fast asleep with his head on the red-haired man's shoulder. Dumbledore came up the steps. Shanks looked up. He did not wake Harry. Well, Dumbledore asked. He is in a mirror, Shanks said. Who? Your stone is in a mirror. Tom is not. Tom has been escorted from the premises. Quirrell is asleep in your hospital. The children are as you see. I believe my work here is done. Dumbledore's lips twitched. Mr. Shanks, I have not in 50 years had a guest arrive uninvited at Hogwarts. Wake my stones, evict a Dark Lord from one of my teachers, and place my restored artifact back into a mirror the mirror has been decent enough to hide it in. I thank you. I thank you enormously. Tea. Tea, Shanks said gravely. Yes, sit down first. The boy is heavier than he looks. Dumbledore sat. McGonagall, who had been standing quietly in the door behind him, set a kettle. Hermione, without asking, began to braid Ron's hair because she had nothing else to do with her hands, and because Ron, half asleep, did not object. Harry slept. The early light of a June dawn came through the great hall's enormous windows and made the long tables, for a minute, as gold as the toffee apple cauldron. Tell me from the beginning, Dumbledore said. Shanks told him. He told it the way he told everything, plainly, with no flourishes, with Harry's name mentioned twice and his own not at all. When he had finished, Dumbledore was quiet a long time. Mr. Shanks, he said finally. Yes. I wish you had found me earlier. I wish you had left your door unlocked. It was, for the first year after. I think, perhaps, I allowed myself to hope someone would walk in. Then I stopped hoping and I locked it. I am glad you were patient. I think I have, without entirely meaning to, been a great fool for 7 years. You have been, Shanks said mildly, a very good headmaster, and the only thing you have been fool about is yourself. Keep going. The boy will need you still. I am not a wizard. There are doors in this world I cannot open and will not try. He is yours for 9 months a year. He is mine for 3. That is the bargain, if you will take it. Dumbledore considered. He looked at Harry asleep, and he looked at Hermione braiding, and he looked at Ron eating cake. "I will take the bargain," he said. "Good." They shook hands. The kettle boiled. McGonagall poured tea. "Harry," Shanks said quietly, nudging him. "Harry," Harry stirred. "Wake up, lad, tea, Dumbledore." "Sir," Harry sat up, he rubbed his eyes, he looked at Dumbledore. He had, Shanks noticed with a small inward smile, the particular slightly cross look of a boy who had been woken. "Sir, the stone is quite safe, Harry, thanks to your forbearance. A thing I am not sure many of the men I have known at your age or mine would have shown. You did very well. Professor Quirrell will live. Will probably, when he wakes, not remember much. That is no bad thing for him. And the other one is, as Mr. Shanks has explained, not dead, will return, will do so more weakly than before, will be between us and perhaps soon among others a problem we do not any longer shy away from. Would you agree, Mr. Shanks?" "I would agree." "Then, Harry," Dumbledore's eyes over the half-moons were very kind, "go to bed. Finish the term. Pass your exams. Go home for the summer. Come back in September. I shall be very glad in September to see you. If between now and then anything at all occurs that you wish to speak to me about, a letter will find me. I shall in my turn write to you if I may." "Yes, sir." "Good lad." Dumbledore stood. He inclined his head to Shanks, not quite a bow but more than a nod. He looked once fondly at Hermione, who was still braiding, and at Ron, who had finished the cake. Go sleep, all of you. Hogwarts will still be here when you wake." On the last day of term, Shanks came for them all. He came by Muggle train. He wore, for London, a long dark coat and a flat cap that made him, for half the carriage, almost invisible. He stood on platform 9 3/4, where he had first stood 10 months before, and he watched as the red engine steamed in for 3 small figures at a compartment window. He saw them. He raised his one hand. They waved. Harry was holding the window open for Hedwig's cage. Hermione was typically in the middle of a sentence. Ron also typically was halfway through a pasty. The train slowed. Doors opened. Children poured. Mrs. Weasley, halfway down the platform, was shouting at no one in particular. Gertie, with the old dog, was at the barrier with a hamper. The 3 children came off the train. Hermione went to her parents. Ron went to his mother. Both of them, before they went, had hugged Harry in the carriage corridor. Both of them had said, "See you at the island." Mrs. Weasley had given permission. Granger Sr. and Jr. had given permission. The summer was ordered. Harry walked down the platform to Shanks. He set down his trunk. Hedwig in her cage clicked her beak approvingly at Shanks because Hedwig had, over 10 months of transatlantic service, developed strong views about which humans were acceptable and which were not. "Afternoon," Shanks said. "Afternoon. Are you well?" "I'm well." "Are you ready?" "I'm ready." "Good lad, Gertie is waiting. There is a pie. After the pie, we are going to take the evening train to Cornwall and then a boat. After the boat, a house, a beach, a palm, friends in a fortnight." "How does that sound?" "It sounds," said Harry, "like the second best thing I have ever heard." "Only second best? The best thing I have ever heard was you, on a hill, telling me I had a mouth on me." "Ah," Shanks was quiet a moment. Then he laughed. The laugh was real, up from his boots, the one from the pub in the West Country 5 years ago. A couple on the platform turned to look at them. Shanks did not mind. "All right then, Harry, second best will do, come on." They walked together toward the barrier. Hedwig in her cage was quiet. The summer unlit opened ahead of them like a long, well-read book. At the barrier, Harry stopped. He looked up at Shanks. "Shanks." "Thank you." "You keep thanking me. I keep meaning it. I know you do." They went through the barrier. Somewhere on the far side, in a world that was, Harry was beginning to suspect, larger than either of his 2 worlds had any right to be. A wind moved across water and carried on it, in the faintest of honest smells, salt, sun, and a trace of char, and a boy who had been trained, for a great many years, by a red-haired swordsman, walked out of an English train station and into a summer that was, at last, entirely his own. The cutter came in at dusk. Ben was at the tiller, the real Ben, calm, unchanged, his rifle at his back, his face doing the small thing his face did when a job he had undertaken had been completed to his satisfaction. Yassop threw the rope. Lucky Roo caught it from the rocks and tied it off with an expert yank. The sky over the cove was a deep, end-of-day orange, and the first evening star was already bright above the eastern cliff. Harry went up the rocks first. He stopped at the top and turned and looked back down at the cutter, at Ben giving the tiller a last pat as he would a good horse, at Shanks, climbing the rocks behind him with his one hand in his pocket, at the line of Yassop's small black silhouette against the water, winding rope with the easy economy of a man who had been winding rope since before Harry was born. "Welcome home," Ben said from behind. Harry turned. "Ben!" "Mr. Potter." "Ben the cove, Corvus." "Yes, it's done." Was he? Ben considered the horizon. "He was a man who had stopped being a man some time ago, Harry. What I gave him this morning was closer to mercy than to justice. Mercy is cheap at that price. Don't think about it. He is not any longer a thing in the world. The things he ordered done in your name are, over the next weeks, going to be undone by Mr. Quillings, who turns out to have quite a talent for it. He has been given a pension. He is going to live in Shropshire and keep bees. He is, it turns out, happier than he has been in 20 years. Ben, yes, thank you." "Don't," Ben said lightly. "Shanks keeps telling you not to. He is right. Thanks are for things that were not owed. This was owed. Up the path. Lucky has made, I fear, some kind of pie." Hermione and Ron came 10 days later. Hermione's parents had insisted on bringing her themselves. They had ridden down on a Muggle train to the same small cove. And Mr. Granger, a dentist, and Mrs. Granger, a dentist, had met Ben on the beach with the slightly cautious politeness of two professionals being introduced to a very senior colleague in a field they did not practice. And they had been given tea at Gertie's friend's cottage. And they had, within 15 minutes, been handed back their only daughter by a one-armed man with red hair and a sword, with the assurance that she would be returned by the last day of August in the same condition, plus some muscle and possibly, he could not promise, the ability to throw a small stone farther than they would prefer. Mr. Granger laughed. Mrs. Granger had liked Shanks on sight and did not say so. The Grangers went home on the evening train, slightly bewildered, carrying with them, between them, one unspoken thought, which was, our daughter has at last found friends, and we are, what a thing, grateful. Ron arrived the next morning with a trunk, a carrier pigeon called Errol that fell out of the air the moment it saw the island and had to be revived with a bowl of warm water, and a letter from Mrs. Weasley that thanked Shanks at length for inviting her son, added that she hoped he was not a pirate in the worst sense, and concluded with a recipe for steak and kidney pie which she had thought Lucky might appreciate. Lucky did. "Your mother," he told Ron, "is a national treasure. Remember that." Ron, who had always known this, nodded. The summer was long. It was long in the way the island's summers were long, not by the clock, but by the amount of life you put into each day. Harry trained. Hermione trained. Ron, for the first time in his life, was the thing everybody waited for at breakfast because he was finishing something. Ron, in mid-August, held armament hacky in the bowl of the valley for the count of 12. Hermione, who had been at 12 for a month, was up to 20. Harry, who had been at half a minute when he came home, could now, on a good afternoon with a following breeze, hold both arms plus the underside of his jaw and the crown of his head for a little over 2 minutes. Nobody said anything about this. Nobody needed to. They walked the beach in the evenings in the easy quiet of people who had stopped needing to keep score. Shanks, watching from the porch, thought, this is it. This is what it looked like. He did not say that either. On the last night of August, they had the fire on the beach. It was not, any of them knew, quite ordinary firewood. Lucky had collected, across the summer, a particular kind of driftwood that burned in a particular blue-green color, and he had been saving it. Yassop had, without comment, brought out a small flute instead of a fiddle. Ben sat on the sand with his long legs folded, and let Hermione lean against his shoulder, and did not, when Hermione, after the second song, began to quietly cry because the summer was ending, move at all, because Ben, for all his quiet, understood perfectly when a person needed to lean against something that did not move. Shanks told one more story. It was a story about a boy who was not, any longer, the boy he had been. It was not, by the end, clear to anyone listening whether the story was about Harry, or about Shanks himself, or about someone else entirely, a boy in a straw hat, perhaps, whom Shanks mentioned only in passing, whose name he said only twice, both times softly, both times with a particular small smile that Harry, watching, filed away for later. When he had finished, the fire was low. The stars were very full. A single ship far out passed along the horizon with a single light at its bow, and no one in the group commented on it because it was not, they could all feel, a ship any of them had to worry about. "Harry," Shanks said. "Yes. In the morning, I want to give you something." "Oh, not now. In the morning, it's a school thing, you'll see." "All right. Bed, all of you, train's early." They went to bed. Ron was asleep before he was horizontal. Hermione cried quietly for another 2 minutes into her pillow, and then, because Hermione was Hermione, stopped and slept, and did not in the morning look puffy. Harry lay in his bed under the open window and listened, in the hacky way, to the island, its warm, slow breathing, its fish and palms and the single old turtle that came up the beach every 3rd year and was, this year, due, and thought about the things Shanks would give him in the morning. In the morning, on the porch, Shanks handed him a wooden practice sword. "Kendo length, more or less," Shanks said. "Not an iron one. An iron one would frighten McGonagall. Take it to school. Carry it openly. If anyone asks, you will say, 'This is a gift from my teacher, and I carry it because I practice.' If Dumbledore asks, he will grant you an exemption because he has, I have it on reasonable authority, already decided to grant you one. If any other boy asks to see it, you show it. If any other boy asks to hold it, you say, politely, number the sword is not for practice at school. The sword is for remembering what you have been practicing. Yes, yes, you will train in the mornings, early, alone on the grounds by the lake. McGonagall has been told. She will not send anyone to interrupt. You will also, I think, find a number of mornings that Ben is, for some unrelated reason, in Hogsmeade that day, and that a walk to the gate provides you and him with an excellent chance to work a few forms. Yes, and Harry, yes. Do not draw a real sword for anyone in that school unless a real thing is on the line. Do you understand?" "I understand." "Good lad." He pressed the practice sword, handle first, into Harry's one hand. Harry took it. It was lighter than he had expected. It was also, he could feel, exactly the right weight. "Shanks, one more question. When I, with the Conquerors, on the 3rd floor with Quirrell, you said, the 3rd form doesn't learn. You said it wakes." "I did. It didn't come out again in the room with Dumbledore. It hasn't all summer. I can feel it a little when I reach, but it's quiet." "Good. Is that right?" "Harry, yes, that is exactly right. Conquerors is not a gun. It is not something you draw. It is the weight of who you are landing on a room when a room needs to be still. It wakes when there is a thing in the room that must be told, without question, who you are. That night there was such a thing. This summer there has not been. It is, Harry, the quietest of the 3 kinds. It is, in a way, the kindest. The men who use it for noise, those are the men it ruins. The men who use it for no, those are the men it makes. Do you understand?" "Yes." "Good, now train's at 10. Gertie's car comes at 9. Toast." Toast. They had toast. The 3 children ate the toast on the porch, with the black sand beach in front of them and the palms behind, and a single kite on the wind over the ridge, and an old turtle who had, that morning, finally come up the beach, drinking a bowl of water that Lucky had thoughtfully set down because the turtle, like all of them, had been through a great many things and deserved a small service. On the train north, in their compartment, Hermione sat across from Harry with a book she was not reading. Ron sat beside him, going steadily through a packet of sandwiches his mother had given him that morning and that Lucky had refused with unusual dignity to replace with anything of his own out of respect. "Harry, the practice sword. Yes. Is that normal?" Harry smiled. "No," he said. "Will they let you?" "Shanks says Dumbledore already has." "Oh, Hermione." "Yes." "Will you come with me in the mornings?" Hermione considered. "Yes," she said. "Ron, yes." "Will you?" Ron did not answer at once. He finished the sandwich. He wiped his mouth. He looked for a long moment out the window at the green country rolling past. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, I'll come." "Good." They rolled on. The country was quiet. The sky was a good blue. Somewhere up ahead, in a tower, a hall, a lake, a forest, a third-floor corridor that was, for this year at least, not going to need any bolts, a castle was lighting its windows. Harry sat at the window with his head against the glass and watched the Scottish hills come nearer. On his lap was the wooden sword. In his pocket was a folded envelope, with a letter inside from Shanks that he had not opened yet because he was saving it for the feast. He thought about the first day on the hill, 5 years ago, when a red-haired stranger had sat on a stone and told him, in 4 words, that running from one's cousin was a kind of lost. He thought about a porch on a black-sand beach, where a man with one arm had said, "You are yours. You are not theirs." He thought about Hermione, whom he had met in an owl's shop, and who was now reading Quidditch through the ages for the 4th time because she liked the diagram. He thought about Ron, asleep now, whom he had met on a train, and who had, 10 months ago, levitated a club above a troll and saved a friend he did not, yet know he had. He thought about his mother. He thought about his father. He thought, "I will not," he thought, "be the boy they wanted me to be because I was not there to be asked. I will be the boy Shanks has made. I will be the boy I made. And if, at the end, whenever the end comes, my mother and my father, wherever they are, happen to look, they will see a boy who was his own." It was, he thought, the best he could do. He thought Shanks would approve. Outside the window, a single gull who should, by rights, have been 300 miles closer to the coast, dipped down beside the train for a moment, matched its speed, and looked directly at Harry with a bright and slightly pleased yellow eye before peeling away and lifting on an unseasonable wind into the west. Harry smiled. "Crab," he said quietly to the window. The gull did not, of course, answer. It did not have to. The train rolled on. Chapter 6 end.